This is my second attempt at recording this video. The first one I got 2.5 hours worth of recording through before I had some technical difficulties and had to completely start over. Anyway, that's just like perfectly scuffed for the vibes of this arc, because before we get into it, let me just say I think this arc is amazing and done very well. However, when it was publishing, the chapters slowly started getting shorter and shorter, and a lot of people, at least in the American fandom, did not like the twin reveal. So, a bombshell reveal that people didn't like with the book of flashbacks, and you can see why some people thought it was kind of scuffed, and it changed the fandom forever. Anyway, coming home from the Battle of the Bands after learning about the secret, unethical blood drive of the Sphere Music Hall, we're left on the edge of our seats as CL Phantom Hive is face to face with his supposed-to-be dead brother, CL Phantom Hive. The last arc we covered had a huge bombshell drop, and now it's time to put everything we thought we knew about Black Butler into a new context, unobscured and out in the open for everyone to see. Welcome to the Blue Memory arc. This is the 10th installment of our deep dive into Black Butler, the manga. Before we actually get into things though, I feel it's only right to give a couple of content warnings. Black Butler has its dark moments, and while we may know what happened to the twins in their backstory, it's another thing to see it happen. So beware of violence as we see the gruesome attack on the manor, and also, and I cannot stress this enough, heavy content warning for child sexual assault. I'll warn for this once again when we're getting to the chapter where it's covered, but I just wanted to throw out that general blanket statement in case there were people watching this video who may not be aware of what is to come in this story arc. So, now that all that's out of the way, let us go back in time to a happier place where the Phantom Hive twins were just two kids in a loving family. Nothing more and nothing less. So, fun fact, this is the other point of view of the cover of Chapter 32. More specifically, the ending of Chapter 130 at the end of the previous video is just a redraw of this full scene of the chapter cover. I don't know if I pointed that out in the last deep dive. I don't think I did. Anyway, also real quick, just to recap, our CL is the character that we have been spending the past 130 something chapters with, and real CL is the dead twin now back from the dead, just, clearing that up. The chapter opens with Sebastian, the dog, barking his head off at our CL, who seems to be startled or scared of the dog. He'd never been fond of Sebastian. The dog was always pestering him, and only barked at him. He considered the dog mean, but only mean to him. We see, though, that the dog is acting out of concern. We already know that our CL was sickly as a child, and animals are pretty good at sensing when something's wrong. My own parents' dog took it upon himself to bark at my mom and then everyone else in the household when she was having a medical emergency a couple years back. So, dogs are just good at that kind of thing. Our CL isn't trying to go outside though, only wanting to look out on what he was missing. Rachel, Aunt Angelina, Real CL, and Lizzie are all outside enjoying each other's company. As he watches, Vincent comes home, catching the dog's attention, leaving our CL alone at the window, looking down on his family. He and CL are twins, but since CL popped out a little bit earlier, he's the older brother. They look so much alike that even their parents get them mixed up sometimes. But when they were 5, our CL started coughing a lot. It was determined that he took after his delicate mother. Even though they were just alike, our CL was the only one to get sick. This places a bit of distance between the two twins, at least for our CL. He's the one left out. I don't think it's something his family does to be malicious, but a byproduct of being a child who can't keep up with the others. It seems like our CL had somewhat of a lonely childhood, watching from the window while everyone else played outside. Forced into that role of the wallflower, looking on while life happened in front of him. Vincent sometimes brings friends home, and they're all scary-looking men. Real CL isn't fazed, though, and pulls his more timid twin along. showcasing the differences in their personalities. We see that Real Ciel is curious and has the confidence to believe that things will always work out for him, while our Ciel would rather stay back, play it safe. He's not sure if it would be okay for them to go see what the scary-looking men are up to. The two watch from the shadows until Diedrich acknowledges them. This gives Real Ciel the permission he needs to make himself at home in this meeting, running up to his father and, just getting cozy. This scene is actually the same flashback from the Emerald Witch arc where we see Vincent asking Diedrich to aid his sons if something were to ever happen to him. So it's kind of fun seeing this again, but from a slightly different perspective. This scene goes on a bit longer, drawing more similarities between Vincent and Real Ciel's personalities. Diedrich calls out to our Ciel, stating that he'd need to learn to be just as cheeky as his brother, because he'll have to eventually make it in the real world on his own, since he won't inherit a title or land as the younger son, further placing distance between these two boys, highlighting their differences, and the different hands that they were dealt in life despite being identical twins. Real Ciel is outgoing and can talk to people pretty easily. We see our Ciel reflect back on the party from the circus arc flashbacks as he dwells on his shyness and how Real Ciel was able to greet everyone without an issue, despite only being around 7 years old. Our Ciel already has a lot of insecurities about himself and how he compares to his brother. He's very much in his head about who he is or who he perceives himself to be in comparison to those around him, and how he has these flaws that he doesn't see in others and how he doesn't measure up to what his brother is able to do. Stuck in his head, he bumps into Undertaker, who can't tell the twins apart. But to him, the two are pretty equal in his head, so it doesn't actually matter which one it is. I would love to know why Undertaker's just hanging around the Phantom Hive Manor, but since this is from our Ciel's point of view, and he's, a young child, we don't actually get to know. So I can catalog this as Grandpa Undertaker theory crumbs, and I am. But I do find it notable that Undertaker sees all Phantom Hives on the same level. The only thing that matters is being a part of the family, be that a state of mind he has or the level of care or lack thereof necessary for his position. Real Ciel eventually catches up after noticing his brother ran off. He's upset about being left behind, but I think there may be more to it than that. I think Real Ciel loves his brother and really deeply cares about him. And I think it's very possible that he noticed his brother may have taken their previous encounter with Diedrich the wrong way, or was perhaps even stressed about his future after what Diedrich had said. And it's only natural that he would want to go check up on his brother after noticing he was a little off. But there is also the case that Real Ciel is low-key, or maybe high-key, very codependent on his brother. We'll talk about that a bit more in a bit, but he does seem upset with his brother for running off and leaving him when they had been together. Right after Real Ciel reunited with our Ciel, our favorite journalist, Pitt, shows up. He remarks how it's the first time he's seen the twins together, further establishing that our Ciel is frequently left out or too sick to be a part of whatever is going on around the house. Undertaker points out that Pitt is in a really good mood, and we find out that he was able to sell the scoop on Vincent's closed case for a lot more than he anticipated, so he bought himself a new camera. Ooh, fancy. Pitt suggests taking a picture of the twins since they're there. He wants to test out his camera more and mark the occasion, likely in reference to our Ciel feeling well enough to be up and about, or just the occasion of the day for Pitt. Our Ciel is hesitant, but Real Ciel grabs his hand. They're getting their picture taken together. Real Ciel brings our Ciel into the moment, making sure he is included. Over the cute moment of the two getting their picture taken, with Undertaker being a prop, our Ciel's thoughts are laid out. Despite the twins looking alike, everything else about them is different. He sees Real Ciel as the cheerful one, as the kind one, as the brave and strong one. Meanwhile, he's never going to be the Earl. Even as a young child, our Ciel seemed to struggle with his self-worth and his innate kindness and humanity, holding his brother up on a pedestal for everything that real Ciel could do that he could not, for the care and kindness that he was shown by his brother. Anyways, that's also the story of the picture Pit pulled out in the previous arc, and the same picture Agni found in the fireplace. Rest in peace. We see our Ciel reading in his room, and real Ciel brings him a plate of food that he, Vincent, and Diedrich prepared in hopes that our Ciel would get better. A callback to the special chapter 99.5 that was released with the Book of Circus Blu-ray and DVD back in like 2014 or 2015, somewhere around there. So that's cool. We see real Ciel care for his brother and genuinely desire to spend time with him, while our Ciel thinks he's holding his brother back. Our Ciel focuses on the things that he cannot do and how spending time with him is keeping his brother from playing outside or doing something that he assumes any young boy would want to do. But real Ciel is adamant that he wants to be inside with his brother. He's here because he wants to be. And our Ciel and Vincent are also, the only ones he can get a good chess match out of. Real Ciel then changes the subject, saying that they can go boating tomorrow and have fun. We then see the two at night. Real Ciel brings our Ciel tea with lots of honey. The two joke about Tanaka scolding them, and it's a really cute scene that parallels the scene with Macmillan from the Weston arc. Just two dudes being brothers. And we love to see it. It's very wholesome. Fast forward to the next morning, our Ciel's cough is too bad for him to go on the boating trip, but he insists that his family go without him, because his mother is finally feeling well, and he doesn't want to hold them back from having a good time. His family does not want to just leave him behind, but he insists, saying that he'll be fine just chilling with Tanaka. Real Ciel does seem to notice that our Ciel is upset about this, and reassures him by promising to bring him back souvenirs. Flowers, rocks, acorns, just whatever you would find on a boating trip. It's a display of kindness while also respecting that our Ciel would feel worse about holding them back than being left out, showcasing that these two know each other very well and what lies in their hearts. After everyone leaves, Tanaka praises our Ciel for being thoughtful and tender-hearted. Traits I would argue he still showcases in the present day of the manga, and are a core part of his personality that he himself tends to overlook. I think it's very important to see Tanaka pointing out these attributes because even as a child, our Ciel overlooked his own kindness in favor for propping up his brother. So it's nice to be reminded that, hey, just because you think your brother's a good person doesn't mean that you are not a good person. Both of you can be a good person. Tanaka also seeks to provide comfort for this lonely child, promising to make him whatever food he wants to eat, and playing with him. Sometimes, best friends can be a small child and their grandpa figure / butler. And I stand by that. When the rest of the family returns from their boating trip, everyone has an armful of flowers, presumably for our Ciel. Real Ciel, excited to return to his brother and show him what they found, rushes forward and trips, spilling flowers everywhere. Despite it all, our Ciel was happy. He was fulfilled, and surrounded by people who loved him dearly, despite his shortcomings, despite the ways he held them back, despite not being able to fully participate in life with them. He was their family, and that was enough. This chapter is pretty notable because it sets up the family dynamics and establishes that our Ciel has always had these insecurities that we see him struggle with in the present day. Issues with self-worth, doubt. It's the mindset that very easily led him to the choice he made to become his twin brother. It's providing context to the things that we already know in a way that I feel like it's very enlightening to see how he was before everything went to shit, and to see the through lines of his personality and the things that he was struggling with mentally that he still carries with them, and how those things have influenced the decisions that he makes. And seeing, after seeing all the decisions that he has made, going back and seeing this underlying context just makes all the puzzle pieces fall together. Our Ciel loved his family and treasured his time with them, and they included him in life any way they could while still accommodating his poor health. and that made him feel loved. I feel like sometimes we can catch glimpses of Ciel carrying this love with him in the way that he interacts with his servants in the more tender-hearted moments, and the way that he, despite saying he doesn't, the way that he spends time with the people he cares about, like Soma and Lizzie, and it all feels very reminiscent of how his family used to be. Or maybe I'm grasping at straws because I love this child so dearly and I desperately need him to have redeeming qualities. Anyway, Ciel came from a very happy and loving family, and that was enough for him, and he was set up to be a well-adjusted adult, for the most part, until that all burnt down around him. Ciel is taking fencing lessons from Aunt Frances. We love to see it. We see our Ciel and Lizzie sitting off to the side, watching. Lizzie asks how our Ciel is feeling, and it does seem like our Ciel really enjoys her company. But as soon as Frances leaves, Lizzie rushes over to real Ciel's side, kind of leaving our Ciel behind. I don't think this is a lack of care towards him on Lizzie's part, but I would assume she is much closer with real Ciel, likely because she gets to spend more time with him since he feels up to it more often, and he's the one that she is expected to marry when they grow up. And we also know Lizzie heavily romanticizes her position as Ciel's betrothed, contributing to her coming off as obsessed with Ciel. All of this leaves our Ciel feeling like a third wheel that honestly isn't even needed. Someone who's there but not really a part of the group. It's an isolating feeling that likely contributes to his hangups and reaffirms his insecurities. But I do want to say this is not Lizzie's fault. She's also a child, only 1 year older, and while yes, children can be mean and more often than not should be held accountable for their actions because consequences are a thing, and it's better we learn that younger when it's less life-destroying than when we're older. But I don't think Lizzie is doing this in a malicious way, and I don't think this should reflect who she is at her core. I think it's safe to say she does not spend a lot of time around our Ciel because he's often so sick, and as a result of that, they're not as close. She probably doesn't know him all that well, or maybe not. They probably know each other pretty well, but she doesn't know him as well as the brother that she actually gets to hang out with and spend time with and play with. So it's not really her being unfair towards the brother, but it's more like, hey, that's my best friend's brother that I see sometimes, and less so, that's my other friend, or like a cousin, I guess. I don't know. I'm always gonna be a Lizzie defender till the day I die. If Lizzie has 0 defenders, I'm in the dirt. Things get interrupted when Tanaka comes to inform them that their Kingcraft teacher has arrived. Real Ciel tells our Ciel to go on ahead since he has to get changed first, and he does, leaving his brother and cousin behind and going through life by himself, as he will do as an adult. Our Ciel then overhears Aunt Frances and Vincent discussing something. Frances is concerned that if something were to happen to the heir, then the spare would need to step up and take his place. Hey, yeah, can I pull back the curtain here for just a sec? I don't know if Frances actually refers to our Ciel as the spare, or if that's just how he feels and how he's interpreting her words in this moment, or how the flashback narration is interpreting it. We do know that our Ciel's real name is a secret still, even to this day, August 10th, 2025. It's still a secret and likely will be until the end of the series, if we even get to know it at all. Not using a name for this child is a choice to hide something from the readers, and I don't think this is necessarily an intentional choice to show the lack of care from his family. But I do recognize that it can be taken that way, and does come across that way if you read the rest of the manga with the thought that no one noticed our Ciel is not who he claimed to be, and never asked about the other twin. At least on paper. I will always say they probably knew something was different, wanted to ask about the twin, but either A, did not want to have that uncomfortable confrontation and conversation, or B, maybe skirted around it in scenes that we don't actually get to see because it's irrelevant to the manga, and also the whole twin thing was supposed to be a plot twist. So it makes sense why we've never seen on paper anything in that realm. I do believe it's a narrative choice on Yana Toboso's part to keep the twin hidden, or at least obscured enough to be somewhat unsure about until she was ready to drop the bomb. Not a thing she wrote to showcase that no one gave a shit about this child. Regardless of how you take it though, Francis seems to be displaying a genuine concern over his ability to take over guard dog duties, if it falls to him. Maybe she's worried for the house, maybe she's worried for the child's well-being. It's left vague, and I think a lot of that is, even if it was a little bit more clear she was worried about his ability to keep up and his well-being, our CL would probably take that as, she thinks I can't do it, she thinks I'm weak, she thinks I'm unworthy, whether that was the case or not. And we are seeing this through his eyes. And to rub salt in that wound, Vincent would rather have the Phantom Hive family relinquish their duties to the Queen and the estate to the Crown than whatever it is Francis may have been trying to bring up. I personally see this as Vincent not wanting to endanger his weaker child, feeling he'd rather his son not be put in that position, even if it meant abandoning the Phantom Hive name and what it has stood for. He'd rather his son, live than honor a tradition and a name, and I think that's a pretty fair read because we see, at least with our CL, the notion of tradition is not something that he values. So I think it would be safe to say that his family, at least when they were young children, did not put a lot of importance on tradition for tradition's sake. So if abandoning tradition would be better off for the well-being of a person, I could see the Phantom Hive family being like, yeah, fuck tradition. We don't need that. But our CL likely takes this as evidence that his father also does not believe in him. Proof that he's nothing more than his poor health and a cheap copy of his stronger brother. He stands outside, solemn, as he listens in. We then fast forward to a day where Vincent is taking both of the boys out to do the rounds on the estate. It's take your children to work day that doubles as a, hey, take notes kids, this will be your job eventually too. Finally, we're learning exactly what an Earl does because we are over 130 chapters in and I've been too scared to ask what CL's day job is. Vincent explains to the boys the role he plays in the community, essentially, and a thing that I think is worth noting here is the way each boy responds to the notion that a lord takes care of the people living on his land. Our CL feels that granting everyone's wishes sounds difficult. How many people are we talking here? He's hung up on the logistics of how to handle such a thing and how to treat these people with care, while Real CL points out that, hey, we gotta take care of them if we want the people to work for us. He even compares the people to sheep, saying that sheep go elsewhere if they have no grass to eat. This does get a side eye from Vincent. Real CL is already thinking about how he and his family are essentially using the people that live on their land, not necessarily in a bad way, but he sees it as taking care of his assets, recognizing the work they do for his family and wanting to keep the status quo, not necessarily validating their inherent humanity and seeing them as, people. Not to say that he doesn't see other people as people, but it's a very how are they serving me mindset, whereas our CL is focused more on how a person would make sure that everyone was happy and had their wishes met, not how doing so would benefit him. And I think at this point in time, since they would be, kind of young children, I think around 8 or 9, maybe 8, pretty young, and had the same upbringing, I think it's safe to assume that this particular difference in their outlook comes down to more of their personalities and less so how they were raised. Because I would imagine that they've got very similar explanations growing up as to what the people living around them were doing and who they were and the roles they played and everything. And while our CL was not being raised to be the Earl, I would imagine at the ages that they were, they got the exact same education. We know they did classes together, basically. Or at least it's it's assumed they did classes together, because when we see them talking about like their tutors being there, it's always something they were doing together. So this seems more of like a notion of, hey, real CL definitely thinking a little more like Vincent, and our CL is not thinking like Vincent. And I am making the assumption that Vincent sees people for what they can do for him, because we know he's a sneaky little bastard. We know that man will manipulate any situation to his gain, especially as an adult. Vincent takes the two to see Vicar Rathbone, the man who sees to the everyday needs of the village. The two men catch up on what's going on, and this is where we get the detail that Rachel named the boys, and that Ciel is an odd name in England. It's French, so that makes sense. Vincent shares that his family was unhappy with it. I could see Francis crashing out about this already. But he does believe there will be a time soon where traditional English names will be tedious and not as high value. 1, Vincent says tradition, dumb. 2, sounds like he knows something. At this point, we do not know what Vincent knows, or if he's just progressive. But I feel like this does point towards Vincent knowing something that may be tied to why he was murdered. Also maybe tied to the fact that in the present day of the manga, Germany seems to be, more advanced than England, at least in terms of military tech, possibly tied to some alternate history version of World War I that the German Reaper Sasha was talking about. Or maybe he's just seeing the future as a more globalized society, where there's more of a mixing pot vibe going on. But all things considered, I'm leaning more towards, the alternate technologically advanced timeline of Black Butler, and how there's been a lot of hints here and there that there's some sort of like global conflict that's might be coming up at some point. We do know World War I was just around the corner by like a few decades when we take the timeline and put it into like our real world history. So I'm willing to guarantee in the late 1800s, or what are we in? 1889, whatever year Black Butler's in currently, there were probably already things going on behind the scenes politically that likely led to the World War. I'm just gonna shut up because I think we're getting to the point where I don't really know what I'm talking about, and I'm making things up. You know what they say, Black Butler fans love to spread misinformation. The boys look on, commenting on how much work it looks like an Earl does. Our Ciel thinks that real Ciel is going to do a very good job though, and he wants to also grow up and be a fine man like their father. A little brother real Ciel can be proud of. Telling us that he yearns to be someone who can support his family the way they support him. Yearns to be someone real Ciel would be proud to know, and not just some sickly boy who can't get out much. He wants to feel like he is worthy of the love he is given, and currently, he doesn't feel that. Real Ciel is already proud of his brother though. That's his little brother, his dear friend. He then asks what our Ciel wants to be when he grows up. I think real Ciel respects his predetermined future, but also admires the freedom that our Ciel has to decide his own fate. Our Ciel sheepishly admits that he'd like to move to London and open a toy shop. Our Ciel, being a child stuck inside, wishes there were more toys for children like him. He sees the ways that he could improve his own experience and wishes to do that for other kids in the future. This kid would love Gamers Outreach and the Hermitcraft charity that Good Times with Scar has put on the past couple of years. It's the same premise, actually, providing fun and joy to children who are stuck inside or in a hospital. And anyway, obligatory Minecraft YouTube reference out of the way. This showcases our Ciel's desire for independence and a display of the sense of self that he already has. He is his own person, and while he wants to do things to gain the pride and respect of his family, he does not feel as if he needs them attached to his side. Real Ciel, however, would rather have his brother by his side. He objects, saying nobles don't sell toys. Why can't he just be a vicar or a doctor and stay nearby? They could always be together. So why does his little brother want to leave him alone? Real CL is codependent on our CL. He has this fear of abandonment towards his brother, and he places his brother's needs above his own, taking care of him when he's sick and choosing to stay cooped up inside just to be with him. Our CL points out that real CL would still have Lizzie and their parents, but that's not enough for him. That's not his brother. Vincent calls out that it's time to go, and this time it's our CL with the happier demeanor, pulling along the other, trying to comfort his upset brother. This moment showcases that real CL is not all that our CL props him up to be. He's got his own flaws, and our CL returns the kindness he receives. They take turns being the strong twin. This also sets up a clearer picture as to what the twins' relationship was like. Both boys adored each other and really valued their brotherhood. But real CL needs his brother to be by his side. He can't really function. That might be a bit strong. He really is attached to his brother. Maybe they don't need to be like attached at the hip physically at all times, but to know that his brother is at home and where he can reach him is enough. To see RCL envision an independent future where he wouldn't be at the Phantom Hive estate deeply hurts real CL. Because if the roles were reversed, I think he would prefer to stay on the estate, whatever job that meant, being as close to his brother as possible. Because to real CL, family and his brother is the most important thing in his life. Nothing else seems to matter. It's likely he has an unhealthy attachment to his brother, causing real CL to latch on this way, potentially informing the readers as to why real CL is behaving antagonistically towards our CL in the present, killing Agni and attempting to kill Soma as well, characters who he perceived to take on a brotherly role in our CL's life. RCL thinks of himself as the insecure one, when in reality, both seem to struggle with different insecurities. Real CL is having a bit of a temper tantrum, refusing to get out of bed, refusing to study. Tanaka and our CL look on, concerned, wondering what the issue is. Vincent and Rachel come in to see what all the commotion is about. Rachel looks very outwardly concerned, while Vincent first appears stoic. We get a close-up on his expression, and he may have noticed real CL's shift in demeanor when he took the boys out to work, and knows it could possibly be related. Rachel sends our CL off to his lessons, promising that she and Vincent will get real CL to come out. Now that it's just the three of them, Rachel and Vincent start to get to the bottom of things. I love that both parents seem to treat their children very gently, with a lot of care and patience. Tanaka said earlier that this was unlike him, so clearly something must have made him upset. There's something to figure out here, and getting to the bottom of that will be more productive in solving this behavioral issue than yelling at him and telling him to just get up and go to his lessons. It's been made clear time and time again that Rachel and Vincent do care for their boys, and it looks like they do their best to be kind and understanding parents, and I really do love that for both of these children. We eventually learn that real CL is still upset about our CL wanting to move off and be a toy maker. He feels he's being left behind and has decided he does not want to be an Earl. He'd rather go off and be a toy maker with his brother. This outburst seems to surprise his parents, but Vincent finally puts the pieces together. That's what the boys were talking about earlier. Rachel gets it though. She had to leave her sister to marry Vincent, and she can relate to the daunting future of no longer being by her sibling's side after spending their lives together. Rachel takes Vincent's ring, romanticizing the idea of it and comparing it to CL's eyes, and explains that only the Earl of Phantom Hive can wear the ring. Not her, not anyone else. Only Vincent and one day CL. He's the only one that can succeed his father as the next Earl. Vincent chimes in, sharing that opening a toy shop with his brother would be hard as an Earl's heir, but it'd also be hard for the second son of an earldom, and when the time comes, real CL can support his brother as an Earl. They'll always be brothers even if they are physically apart. Rachel points out that being the big brother who can rush in and help is a dashing thing he could be, romanticizing what his future could look like, making it seem less scary to this child who only wants to be by his brother's side. It's at this moment that real CL realizes he does not have a choice. His future is decided for him, so he puts on a brave smile and accepts it. Fine. He'll be Earl of Phantom Hive for his parents and to support his brother. I'm not sure if our CL ever got this spiel or something similar to it, but we do find out in a couple of more chapters that real CL does share this with him. But knowing that that's how his parents explain being the heir to real CL, it makes sense why our CL would feel as if he needed to become his brother when he came back. CL Phantom Hive is the son that will inherit everything. And as a kid, I don't think he would have thought about what would happen in the event that his real CL were to pass away or have something happen before he could take on his title and role. He knows that CL is the heir, so CL he will become, to use the title and power that comes with it to achieve his goal of revenge. We get a montage of the next year, watching the twins living their lives. The boys studying together, real CL and Lizzie playing outside while our CL watched from a window on a brisk fall day. Real CL helping to take care of our CL on a cold winter day. The family celebrating Easter, real CL and Lizzie getting an egg, while our CL watches with Rachel, Edward, Francis, and Alexis. The boys out on a summer day with their parents, the twins walking with their dog through the woods on a fall day. Little moments that show they are loved and happy. Little moments of childhood. It's a winter morning, December 14th. Our CL is up first. Real CL had apparently stayed up all night reading. Our CL opens the advent calendar and they get 2 little rabbits. Real CL seems to really like it, calling it cute. It's their 10th birthday, and they were the first ones to say happy birthday to one another. The manor is busy preparing for their birthday celebration, hanging birthday decor amongst the Christmas decorations, gifts piled up under the tree. The childlike wonder and excitement is matched by their mother, who wishes them a happy birthday, and seems very excited to see them. She gives them a big hug. We learned that even Klaus and Diedrich sent gifts for the boys, telling me that these men were like genuine friends of Vincent, and we've seen them interact with the twins in flashbacks, and they were definitely around a lot while they were growing up, or at least that's the vibe that I get from all of this. Regulars in Watchdog business, regular family friends. I find that really nice, knowing that these contacts that CL inherits after becoming the guard dog himself were people that he grew up around. I don't know if he finds that comforting because they could potentially know his secret, but I still think there is some comfort in knowing that these are extensions of his father. Not that they are extensions of Vincent, but I feel like sometimes when you only know someone because of their relation to someone else in your life, they feel like an extension of that person. So I think it'd be really easy to see Klaus and Diedrich as extensions of Vincent, at least until CL himself got to know them a bit better as individuals and not his father's friends. Tanaka shares that the servants also prepared gifts, a small little mention with apologies of insolence. This tells me that the servants felt like family, cared about the boys as people, and wanted to make them feel special. Phantom Fam has always been so real, and it's really nice to see these people that love and adore these twins and genuinely care about them when they don't necessarily have to. Since it's a special day, the boys have no lessons and can play until dinner time. A day with no set structure, no schedule until dinner and a formal birthday celebration. People all around the manor greet the boys, wish them a happy birthday, and seem pretty pleased that they're growing up smoothly. The boys even sneak into the kitchen, curious as to what the cake will be. They get a hint that it'll be their favorite. Real CL guesses strawberry, the flavor of cake we see Lizzie give CL in the more current day as his favorite, and our CL guesses chocolate, the flavor that he often asks for when it's just him at home amongst people who don't know about the twin. So basically just him around his butler and, Finny, Bard, Mayrin, Somanagni, the gang. Tanaka tells them he'll come and help them get dressed for the party around 6, and the boys get back to spending the rest of the day playing, until they fall asleep, taking what I assume is a really good nap based on that drool. They wake up at 6, wondering where Tanaka is. They wait. 6:15, no sign of him. Maybe they're putting together something really amazing and it's taking a while? They wait. 6:40. Tanaka's really late. As the clock approaches 6:45, the boys start to worry. Why is no one coming? Arasiel looks really concerned, and Real Ciel has a very stern look on his face. It's becoming abundantly clear that something is wrong. The full story of what we've known for most of our time reading Black Butler. On December 14th, the twins' 10th birthday, what should have been a special day with smiles all around ended up being one of the worst days of their lives for everyone in that manner. The boys have begun to wonder what's going on, and Real Ciel takes it upon himself to go investigate. He tells Arasiel to stay put, and that it's his job as the eldest son to go check things out, protecting his dear brother. This is something that we've been seeing and will continue to see more of. Real Ciel often takes on the protector role. Despite being twins, being the older brother is a core part of his identity and his dynamic with his brother. He values being able to step up and help those he cares about, and he cares deeply about protecting his precious brother who has a weaker constitution, and as a result, has been more sheltered. Arasiel is left alone. More time passes, and as it approaches 7 p.m., he begins to think something really did happen. He doesn't know what to do. He's scared. He's just a kid, and one that has not been encouraged to step up and put himself out there. He's just a shy and timid boy. His body language is very closed off. He closes in on himself as a way to protect himself from whatever unknown threats await him. This is very different to Real Ciel's more confident and down-to-business body language. Arasiel opens the door after the clock strikes 7 and finds empty halls. I also think the halls are dark, like the lights have been put out, and we do know this is happening at nighttime after the sun has set. I'm assuming the sun usually sets pretty late this time, or pretty early this time of year. But this darkness on the page could also just be an ambience thing, considering the readers know how the story ends, and it's one of, if not the darkest plot points in the entire series that Yana Toboso has been talking about and showing us glimpses of ever since Madame Red's flashback in the Red Butler arc. Arasiel wanders through his home that is now eerily quiet. A house that was previously bustling with activity, a family, an entire staff, now lay empty. No signs of life. Arasiel is startled with sudden rattling coming from the other side of one of the closed doors. He's scared to death, asking who's there. He pushes through his fear and opens the door to find his trusty family dog, Sebastian, locked up with a muzzle. Arasiel takes the muzzle off and is filled with a newfound sense of safety and confidence. With the companionship of his big scary dog, he's not scared anymore, and together they can go find Ciel. Sebastian grabs Arasiel by the shirt and tries to keep him from moving forward. Arasiel gets knocked down trying to pull himself free, and he thinks the dog is just picking on him, a sense of normalcy amongst the uncertainty that has been this evening. Sebastian licks him while he's down, and after a moment of staring at one another, the dog takes off in the opposite direction, and Arasiel follows. We then see that they were just around the corner from one of the Phantom Hive staff, a dead maid who has been shot. Sebastian was trying to keep this child out of danger, just as he was at the start of the arc, when he had tried to stop Ciel from going outside. Sebastian is a Borzoi, which is a breed of dog that was primarily used for hunting. They're generally pretty chill and very affectionate, and also good with kids, according to the internet. This breed is very independent and intelligent, but based on what I've read online, they're not guard dogs, nor do they seem to be overly protective. But Sebastian the dog seems to have formed a very loyal bond with his family, and does seek to protect his humans, even the little kid who thinks he's being mean. Another tidbit, Borzoi dogs originated in Russia from crossbreeding Saluki and European sighthounds, and up until 1917, during the Revolution, they were popular with czars. These dogs weren't sold to the general public, and you could pretty much only get them as a gift from czars. This caused the dogs to be heavily associated with Russian aristocracy, so that raises the question, how did Vincent get one? Who does he know? What connections does this man have? It might not even, be an important plot point or just, anything. It could just be a fun little detail. Maybe Yana Toboso just likes Borzoi dogs and wanted to draw one. Nothing about Russia has come up ever in Black Butler. From what I can remember, I don't really remember anything past the Blue Memory arc. But most of the global conflict in Black Butler seems to be about Germany. That's been the reoccurring one, especially up until this point of the manga. I don't know, I just thought that was interesting. Sebastian the dog leads Arasiel away from the dead house servant, but Arasiel then quickly loses the dog. He can't keep up, and the dog's on a mission to make sure all of his humans are okay. Arasiel eventually hears Sebastian barking and figures out he must have gone to Rachel and Vincent's room, so he follows the barking. That is until it turns into growling or gurgling, or maybe a bit of both, probably a bit of both. Arasiel knows something has happened to the dog as he approaches the door to his parents' room, calling out to the dog. He then discovers that the dog has been attacked. He rushes to the dog's side and finds blood on his hands after touching the dog. He falls backward from the shock. His hand lands in another pool of blood. Seeping out of the darkness of the room, blood rolls out, strands of Rachel's hair, Vincent's lifeless hand. Arasiel has discovered the dead bodies of his parents. Whoever did it can't have gotten too far, considering Sebastian was literally just murdered. Honestly, the culprit of this particular crime is probably still in the room, which is very dark, by the way, and he's probably hiding somewhere watching this child discover that his pet and parents are dead. Rest in peace. Arasiel, after seeing all of the blood, states that they're hurt and tries to help them. He thinks they're still alive in this moment, or believes it because it's easier to comprehend and to deal with, but I do think they are already dead. Vincent's head rolls back, looking up at Arasiel. He runs off, trying to find someone who can help. He's just a kid. He doesn't know how to stop the bleeding, and he doesn't know how to fix his parents, how to make sure they'll be okay. He yells out as he runs, alerting the house to what he saw, begging for someone. He trips. Arasiel looks back to find that what he tripped over was actually another dead body. A servant that in his haste or in his shock he didn't notice was leaning on the wall. Blood is everywhere, splattered on the walls, on the furniture, pooling on the floor. Arasiel screams out. He needs someone to help him. His brother, Tanaka. Everywhere he goes, he finds empty rooms, dead bodies, blood everywhere. Blood streaks where bodies were dragged, splatters where people were attacked, shot. He keeps running until he's in the dining room with the Christmas tree and the birthday decorations. His birthday, the day of the slaughter, a room covered in blood, decorations torn from the struggle, the dead bodies of the servants who cared for him, a room that was supposed to house a happy celebration. Arasiel breaks down. He's overwhelmed. He's seen the bodies of those who loved and cared for him, people who made up his entire world, covered in blood and laid out in what should have been his birthday party. He cries. He lets it all out. This is the worst day in his life, far worse than any day he would ever have imagined himself having. He cries and cries until he hears something from another room. Desperate to find someone, assuming whoever did this wasn't sticking around, Arasiel runs out asking who's there. And he runs into Tanaka, standing in the hall, looking at someone out of sight. Arasiel yells out for help. Tanaka tries to warn him not to come over. It's not safe. He needs to run. Something has happened to Lord Ciel, and it's too awful for Arasiel to bear. Before he can finish his sentence, Tanaka is stabbed in the back, falling towards RCL, who is now having his face covered. He's being kidnapped from his own home on his birthday. Okay. Guys, I cannot ethically talk about this chapter without a very strong content warning. I will be focusing more on the symbolism and how this has impacted the twins and what it tells us about the narrative of Black Butler, not the actual acts depicted in the chapter, but we will still be going over what happens. This is the CSA chapter, and if you need to skip it, please do. The next chapter will be chapter 136, and it will be somewhere on the timeline. I've got it separated out into like the chapters on YouTube, so you should be able to skip pretty easily. If you're worried about missing anything, this happens towards the tail end of the chapter, so I'll warn again before it actually happens if you want to see like the beginning bit of this chapter. Otherwise, stay safe, take care of yourself. You're not going to miss anything too important. The themes are reoccurring. It's fine. I don't really talk about them in these videos, but the chapter covers in Black Butler do a pretty good job at conveying the themes or big events that will happen in the chapter, and this one is no exception. The twins laid out and pinned down like dead insects on display. The box is labeled as the larvae of Earl Phantom Hive. All of this tells us that the boys are not human in the eyes of those who have taken them, and that one of the goals of those who will eventually have them is a forced evolution of sorts. Insects are often used as symbolism to depict growth or change, and they are also used to depict trauma. And in this specific case, I believe the insect theme is used to kind of combine the two and symbolize the change in specifically RCL's character as he goes through trauma. We'll talk about this more specifically at the end of the chapter. The actual chapter opens up on RCL waking up in a dark, enclosed space. He's been tied up and has a cloth tied over his mouth. He overhears his kidnappers, the ones who attacked his family and his home, discussing what to do. They'll fetch a good price. Folks are into stuff you wouldn't believe. Ciel has no clue what's going on. He can't move, it's dark, and he doesn't know where he is. He can figure out, based on what he can hear and the movement he feels, that he is in a carriage and he's being transported somewhere. RCL realizes, or lets himself admit, that his parents are already dead. He then remembers he never actually saw Ciel's body. What happened to his brother? He can't do this alone, and he wishes Ciel was there. We fast forward to them arriving at their destination, and RCL's box is being opened. Two men look over him, commenting on how pretty he is. They call him a pup as they pull him out of the box. They hold him down and pierce his ear, giving him a price tag. He's not a child to these guys. He's nothing more than livestock that'll turn into a paycheck. I would also like to add that for those who don't know, getting your ears pierced hurts. The actual piercing may not be that bad for most or some, but the healing process is a bitch. I won't rant about my own issues with my ears healing as a kid, but I do bring that up to say that it is a really scary time for this child, and this is going into his brain like torture. And the healing process hurts, especially when you are not maintaining and cleaning and disinfecting, and you know that's not happening here. So it's a miracle he still has an ear. Okay, that's definitely a stretch. But this is just like going to be a constant pain for an indefinite amount of time. I know it's not a big deal compared to what's to come, but it's still a part of the suffering that he went through, and it's another permanent alteration to his body that he's had to live with. It's likely the whole reason he wears earrings now and has the other ear pierced. It's a physical reminder of being treated like cattle, another piece of evidence that he cannot get rid of, and one he'll have to reckon with every time he looks in the mirror. The men grab another child, one that seems to be less cooperative or maybe dead weight. RCL realizes that it's his brother, though. Ciel is here with him, labeled and priced. The men state the two have to be a set or their value will drop. The two are put in a cage together. Arciel is taking it all in, and despite it all, he's at least happy that his brother is alive. Real Ciel, though, looks dejected, closed in on himself. He calls himself pathetic, blaming himself. If he had more power, more than anyone else. He doesn't finish his thoughts, but he does apologize. Now, I'm not really sure what this child thought he could do. He's literally 10 years old, and he's only been 10 years old for like less than a day. Like, I don't know what your grand plan was. I don't know what you think you could do. I don't know what kind of power you think you're gonna wield. But I also understand the knowing that, hey, if he was older, stronger, bigger, had a gun, I don't know, he could have done something, done more than what he did. I understand that thought process. And this line of thought is mirrored in our Ciel. He doesn't think it at the time, but we've seen it all throughout the manga. What happened is his fault, and he needs more power, more than anyone else. I find it significant that Real Ciel has this mindset here when they're both kidnapped that we see our Ciel struggle with in the present. Maybe it's a part of him clinging on to his brother and becoming his brother, but it is also a trauma response. Guilty what ifs. How could I have changed the situation if I did something different? If I were stronger? It makes sense to me that both boys would struggle with this kind of thinking in response to tragedy. Despite being two separate people, they are also very similar, and they grew up together and were raised with the same values and prone to the same pitfalls. Throughout this scene, Arciel has a monologue about how he thought they were always so different. How Ciel is the cheerful and kind one. Ciel is the strong and reliable one. That's what he always thought, but he was wrong. They are equally powerless. They're just kids. And I think it's this line of thinking that leads him to think maybe he can become his brother. If they're not all that different, if they're both just powerless kids, then he could pull this off. He can become Ciel Phantom Hive. Whether that's like actively present consciously in his mind when that time comes is a different conversation, but I think him realizing this is part of how he got to that conclusion when that happens. The two cling to each other and sob. They're the sole source of comfort for one another. Maybe it's a silver lining, a tender mercy, but I do know it would have been a lot worse if these boys were split up. As it is, at the very least, they can be there for each other, suffer through it together, and at the end of the day, know that they are not alone. If they somehow make it out, they can continue to rely on one another as they heal together. After a while, Real Ciel reveals that he has the Phantom Hive ring. He shares what Rachel said and how it's the same color as their eyes and how only the Earl of Phantom Hive can wear it. That's why he took it from Vincent's hand. He didn't want anyone to take it from their family. Arciel realizes that means he also knows their parents are dead. Real Ciel says they'll make it out, whatever it takes, and that ring will take them back home and they can start over together. Arciel is worried that the men who hold them captive will find the ring and take it. Real Ciel has a plan, though. To make sure the ring stays hidden, it's simple, really. He takes the ring and drops it into his mouth and swallows it, hiding it in the depths of his digestive tract. A hint of mischief in his eyes, a glint of Vincent. Real Ciel tells his brother not to tell anyone that he swallowed the blue candy, giving the ring a code name in the process. The two boys join hands and pray to God to keep them safe. I've mentioned in a previous Black Butler deep dive, I think, but England at the time was a Christian country, with religion greatly influencing its culture. It's pretty safe to assume that the Phantom Hives were religious, at least casually. They likely believed in the Christian God and taught some form of Christianity to the boys. I believe their household was more casual with religion, it not being a super big deal, but still an aspect of making sure your children learn all they need to learn. They seem like a family that would probably pray at mealtimes, maybe encourage their kids to pray if they needed to, but it's not a huge aspect of their life. I could very easily see how being a devout Christian would also contradict being the Queen's watchdog and the things necessary for that role. But I bring this up because the idea of the twins believing in the Christian God is an important aspect to this chapter. An undisclosed amount of time later, someone comes to buy the boys. He asks if the people selling told anyone else about this, likely referring to the twins or even the fact that he's there. The seller assures him that they didn't. This man is one of their best customers. It's then stated that it's rare to get one of good breeding, to get children from noble families. The buyer recognizes exactly who the kids are. We know that it got back to Baron Kelvin that the Phantom Hive boys were bought by the cult, and they do look just like Vincent, just with Rachel's eyes. Anyone who knew their parents could identify them pretty quick, I would assume. It's stated that they're worth well more than 2 people. A note on how rare they are, or maybe it's like the rarity of mirror twins, or a note of whose kids they are. I imagine anyone who would buy kids probably knew of Vincent, or possibly even already made enemies of him. The man states that he heard they were twins, but never imagined they'd be Phantom Hives. He cuts himself off, though, not finishing the name, correcting himself to splendid specimens. The man buys the boys, feigning sympathy and care. He takes them to a nice manor and has them cleaned up, dressed, and fed. If we hadn't already been told how this story ends from the get-go, it would be easy to think of this man as someone who saved them. The boys were lulled into a false sense of security by having their needs met and being treated with kindness by these strangers. Ciel even whispers to his brother that they may have been saved by a nice man. Real Ciel, however, is suspicious. He's not so easily tricked. The man has treated them nicely, sure. He even said that they were the stars of the party that evening. Once night fell, the twins were dressed up in fine clothing. This is the same outfit from the PTSD dream sequence in the Emerald Witch arc, by the way. Happy suffering. They're perfectly dressed for their debut, and it's now time to head to the party. They're taken to a top secret party with secret passwords to get in, and all the guests were wearing masks. Predators love to work in secret, protecting their identities and reveling in their atrocities. The twins are a bit freaked out. It's not like any party they've ever been to. The man who bought them tells them that there's nothing to be afraid of, and they'll have a great time too. Hey gang, this is our final warning. If you want to skip the discussion of the scene of the twins being assaulted, go ahead and skip to the next chapter, because that's the rest of this chapter. Anyway, thanks, bye, take care of yourselves. Everyone who's left in this section, you are okay to discuss. Yes? Yeah? Alright, let's move on. The host gathers the partygoers for a speech. He addresses the crowd as devout monks and nuns, stating it's a full moon and that the powers of their wicked king reach their peak. It's an occult thing. It's the perfect night for the manifestation of their king, which they've longed for, and they have some lovely lambs for the summoning ritual. But first, they must defile their pure souls, for souls replete with corruption and degradation make the finest offerings for a devil. The vibes shift as the twins realize they are in danger. This isn't some fun party, but instead a room full of those who wish to inflict harm on the twins for the sake of worshipping a devil. Eyes staring back at them, looking somewhat reminiscent of the chapter where Real Ciel came back and our Ciel was weary of all the eyes on him, a reminder of this night. The eyes and masks resemble moths, and the page is full of moths, staring, approaching. The twins are enveloped with moths as they try to run from them. We get glimpses of the real-world actions between the full-page spread of the boys being overtaken by the moths. I won't describe them, but anyone old enough to read Black Butler is also probably old enough to piece together what's going on here. Our Ciel's inner monologue cries out for his mother, for his father. Where are they? At the end of the day, he's just a child who needs the comfort and protection of his parents. He looks up at a statue of an angel. A moth lands on its cheek. Dear God, why are you smiling?
That's me in the corner. That's me in the spotlight, losing my religion.
Moths are often used to represent trauma, and I've seen them be used many times to represent rape specifically. Moths are seen as vulnerable and delicate, and in Japanese culture, they're often used to symbolize misfortune. I think that's just Yana Toboso's way of depicting what's going on without actually drawing it out. It allows her to depict this in a tasteful way, in a medium that relies on seeing what's happening. but it also ties back to the insect theme of the chapter cover. The forced evolution of the twins from pure children to victims that have been tainted. The violation and perceived filth after being assaulted. The untrue notion that this counts as losing your virginity, a concept that forces adulthood on those who otherwise would not be considered grown. The negative emotions that rise up in a victim after being assaulted. All of it is changing how the twins are perceived by those in the cult, changing the countenance of their souls, filling them with despair, anger, suffering, losing their faith in God. RCL seems to take on a resentment for the God smiling down on him, the God that would allow this to happen, the God that watched. I think it's pretty common to have your relationship with faith change when going through something, and many people seem to struggle with religious beliefs and how to recontextualize them after going through trauma. How could they worship a God that let such horrible things happen to the very people that he is supposed to love and protect? It's a question that comes up a lot in people that I know are religious, specifically Christian. I think this faltering in faith is also something the cult wanted for the boys. All of this is a part of pleasing the devil they wish to summon, and I think it's also what put our CL in a place where he even was able to summon and make a deal with the demon we now call Sebastian. All of this kind of ties together to make a picture that I really don't want to see. This is the worst headcanon to have been made canon, by the way. I hate it here every day. But I do see how this was kind of a necessary point in the plotline for getting RCL to where he was when Sebastian was summoned, and also just, I guess, showing how fucked up these people are and how dark humanity is, because that's also a theme in Black Butler. Anyway, let's stop talking about this now. The two boys laid out like lambs for the slaughter. They're going to be the offerings for the wicked king this cult worships. And until the day of the sacrifice, the cult will fill their souls with corruption and degradation. Take that how you will, I absolutely hate what that implies. This does add some context to our CL's decision to burn down Baron Kelvin's mansion with the children inside during the circus arc. If he's assuming they were treated just like him, and that is an assumption I am also making, it supports the idea that to him it was a mercy killing. I mean, he does literally tell himself that to make himself feel better about his decision. I do think he was reliving the memory of when he summoned Sebastian and probably wasn't thinking about the real children there. He was saving those kids from having to live with the trauma. I'm not saying he was in the right. Those kids did deserve a chance at healing and moving on and living their lives and trying to make the most of it. But I understand his thought process and how he can come to that decision. And there's also the idea that this kind of trauma, while you can heal and learn to handle it over time, it never goes away. It's something they're always going to be grappling with. Although I don't think CL has the best outlook on the situation, considering his healing is just a demon that's giving him power not to be a victim again for the time being, and then his soul is going to be taken. So, not the ideal poster child for going through something and then getting better. After the cult picks the boys up from their ritual, they're both branded with the mark of the noble beast. Christianity believes in the concept of the mark of the beast, a symbol on the hand or the forehead, showing allegiance to the beast and the system. The beast being interpreted as the Antichrist or the devil or something like that. This seems to be contextually different, but somewhat similar. The cult marks the boys with the symbol that looks like Catechus, Hermes' staff in Greek mythology, with the swirls mirroring the snakes. This staff is also present in a popular artist depiction of Baphomet, which is also used in this manga. In the Bible story of Adam and Eve, the devil approaches Eve as a snake, and snakes have been used to symbolize Satan, but they also symbolize eternity. When they're intertwined as they are here, it is used to represent duality. The cult calling it the mark of the noble beast kind of seems like they're branding the kids with the cult branding or a symbol they associate with their wicked king, and it's like they're marking the children as for their wicked king. The Darkest Crow on Tumblr has a really good post about this symbol and how it relates to Black Butler that I'll link in the description below. I was very much referencing it just now, but the post goes into a bit more detail, and it's honestly pretty interesting. So if you're interested in all that, you should go check it out. I don't want to just rehash their post, so we'll leave it at that as being the highlights instead. Arciel wakes up in his cage, at first thinking it had all been a bad dream. Real Ciel is in protector mode, trying to make sure his dear brother is okay. Arciel tries to return the care, asking if his burn still hurts. It does, but he's also concerned about his brother. The worker saddled with taking care of the kids seems to be mad that he's stuck here on Christmas. Oh, by the way, it's Christmas now. Merry Christmas. The twins realize it's only been 10 days. 10 days. But it feels like it's been much, much longer. They're living in a state of uncertainty. Either they will be saved or they will die in those cages. And I think they know that. They're living in a liminal state, waiting to know what will happen. Hoping they can make it out. Waiting for something, anything, to change. 10 days spent like that sounds like a never-ending hell, especially when you know they have no way of knowing when it will end. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. Our Ciel asks if Real Ciel remembers Christmas 2 years ago. He starts to tell a story about how he was so upset that Real Ciel kept saying that Father Christmas wasn't real. Our Ciel still believed in him though. And Real Ciel thought it was silly to believe in something he had never seen. So our Ciel decided to stay up and see Father Christmas with his own eyes. He stayed up late into the night and ran into Tanaka as he was setting out their presents. I can't believe Tanaka is Grandpa, sick-ass Butler, and Santa Claus. The range of a man. Arciel realized that Father Christmas wasn't actually real, and that Real Ciel was always right. The trauma that they've gone through in these chapters, and Real Ciel's notion that it's silly to believe in something you've never seen, leads our Ciel to the conclusion that there is no such thing as God either. We don't get Real Ciel's reaction to this, but I don't think it's too crazy to say that Real Ciel may very well be thinking the same thing. I mean, after all, it's his own thought process and logic being used here to bring our Ciel to that conclusion. And they went through the same thing. So there's a montage of abuse, scenes that imply more than they show. The continued abuse from what we've seen happen to them already, injected with drugs of some kind, chained up, battered, treated like subhuman. That month was a living hell. Arciel says so himself. They'd have been better off dead, something I low-key agree with, in the notion that if this is going to be the rest of your life, if this is a never-ending cycle, death would be a mercy here. And given that it's Arciel narrating this, I think he would kind of still agree on this point. Everything in the narration so far has either been a blatant fact, spoken like it's reminiscing, so like in the sense of, yeah, I thought that back then, and I feel like it's pretty clear when it's that, or it's an idea that Arciel still holds. And given his actions in the circus arc, I am inclined to believe that he does still think they may have been better off dead than living through what they went through. But he had faith in his brother, who said they would escape together. So he wasn't going to just give up. Not yet. We see the workers treating the children like garbage, talking down to them like spoiled rich kids when feeding them slop. It's likely men who need to feel empowered, and they're going on these power trips, and they feel resentful towards the 1%. They're also likely, the workers here are probably normal, like middle class, lower class citizens who are the kind of desperate that would take a job like that. Or they're just sick and twisted. Or honestly, all of the above. And it's very much feels like they're taking out their resentment towards, like, classism on these children that are victims. And the way that these children are fed is absolutely cruel. They're yanked up and force-fed to make sure they stay alive. Not all kids make it through. The unnamed child that shared a cage with the twins is dead by now. Who knows how long that they'd shared a cage with a corpse? Who knows how long these two would survive these conditions that have taken lives already? RCL looks on in horror as the dead kid is whisked away. He says one day he'll be joining that kid. And low-key, it's kind of a miracle he hasn't died already. RCL has asthma, and it seems that he has flare-ups in times of extreme stress on his body and his mind, as seen in the circus arc and a couple other times throughout the manga. But during his time being kidnapped, he does not have an issue, at least not on page. Childhood asthma can seem to subside a bit or go somewhat dormant as a child enters adolescence at around 10 years old, and RCL has just entered that age range. So that would explain why he's suddenly handling things just as well as his healthier brother, I guess. I'm not really sure how accurate of a portrayal asthma is in Black Butler. I don't think it's super consistent, but I'm no doctor and I don't have asthma, so this is another point for I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, so let's just move on. With his sickly past, it makes sense that our Ciel assumes that he will be dying at some point not too far off in the future, just like the child they shared a cage with. Real Ciel grabs his hand, telling him not to worry. This is a scene that we've seen before, but this time it's in full. Not just from our Ciel's point of view, but the whole picture. He has his brother by his side, and together they could conquer anything. At the end of the day, post whatever ritualistic abuse the children were subjected to, the twins are tossed back into their cage, and we see a cloaked man telling one of the caretakers that the children are ready for the slaughter, speaking about them as if they're simply livestock that's being fattened up and not human children being torn down and tortured. Tomorrow, they will be the main course. The next night rolls around. It's been a month since the last full moon, and it's likely a full moon again, and the vessel is full. The Phantom Hive twins have been fully torn down and corrupted in their wicked king's image, and they begin their noble mass. 3 cages sit in the center of a circular room. Pews circle around the room, full of cult members. A ritualistic symbol is engraved or sketched onto the floor, and at the center, an altar. A room made for a ritual. The stars of this memorable day are the Phantom Hive twins. Our Ciel wonders if they're going to be hurt again, something that's become routine for them, just a part of this weird cult. But Real Ciel points out things are different. They are probably going to be hurt, but the masses are only watching tonight, not participating. That's weird. Real Ciel has a bad feeling about all this. The twins cling to one another, Real Ciel holding his brother to keep him safe as the leader of the ritual approaches them. He addresses them as pitiful offerings and says the time has come. The first glorious lamb they will offer to their king is Ciel. Real Ciel is torn from his brother, who reaches out for him. The two are separated, likely for the first time since they were reunited after the attack on their home. Ciel is pulled to the altar. It was a meaningless, pointless, and ruthless choice. Ciel tries to fight back. He screams to be let go, and RCL begs for all of this to stop. The cult continues with their ritual, praying to their Dark Lord as the sacrifice is prepared. As all this is going on, RCL is still crying out, begging for someone to save Ciel. The one leading the ritual pulls out a dagger. The twins know what's about to happen. Tears spill from Real Ciel's eyes as our Ciel continues to scream for them to stop. The man holds the dagger up in the air and plunges it down into Ciel's torso. Blood splatters, a drop landing on our Ciel's face. Our Ciel watches as his brother is killed, sacrificed for this cult. The cult is trying to summon the devil they worship, and our Ciel is spiraling. With Real Ciel slaughtered on the altar, our Ciel realizes his brother was wrong. They were not getting out of there. No one was coming to save them. And this meaningless tragedy reaffirms to our Ciel that there is no God. There can't be, not one that would allow this. Overcome with fear, grief, and rage, our Ciel is at his lowest. He calls out to the cult. All of them. The ones who hurt him, the ones who killed his brother, the ones who watched. Every single one, he'll kill them all. In his despair and raw anger, our Ciel has summoned something. Real Ciel's blood that has dripped onto the ground bubbles. The room shakes and something appears, a large, shapeless mass that attacks the room. The entity speaks, demanding an answer. Who has summoned him? The sacrifice was significant. In the pursuit of pleasure and wealth, calamity and tragedy, where is the fool who spits upon God? The devil has arrived. Sebastian has said before that summoning a devil requires a degree of determination. The determination that our Ciel held to avenge his brother's death. The determination he held to survive. Because at the end of the day, despite it all, our Ciel is a survivor. He does what he must to ensure that he lives, and I'd argue it's low-key a core trait of his, born out of a desire to fight through his ailments, fight through his trauma, to be someone his family could be proud of, to be someone worth surviving when his stronger brother died. Also, that cult did not sacrifice shit. Sure, they did the actual act of killing, preparing the ritual and all of that, and tore our Ciel down to the point of turning his back on God, but they didn't give anything up in order to summon a demon. Those children meant nothing to them. Our Ciel had his brother, the most important person in his life, and his rock during all of this, taken from him. It was a sacrifice in his heart that didn't actually hold any significance to the members of the cult. It's our Ciel's emotional attachment to his brother and their deep despair that he was plunged into that allowed the demon to manifest. If it wasn't for the fact that we know Sebastian ate Real Ciel's soul when he was summoned, I'd even argue the act of killing Real Ciel isn't even what summoned the demon. That's why the demon turns to the boy in the cage, seeing this child as the one who sacrificed something, and felt the determination to summon him, not the cult wishing to manifest their wicked king. The cult members are excited that a devil has appeared, assuming it's the entity they worship. I don't think Sebastian is the devil this group worships. At the very least, he's unaware of being worshipped and they have a warped idea of who he is, which tells me their rituals did jack shit. It was literally for nothing, and only held significance to the humans participating. This drives home just how meaningless this whole tragedy is. Ciel was sacrificed for literally nothing. They were just a group of adults playing pretend, especially from our Ciel's perspective. He doesn't believe in anything occult. He's lost his belief in God and seems to take that same approach to any manner of spirituality. None of this is real to him. So Ciel was killed for nothing. Just the cruelty of man, which is what Black Butler is all about. It's one of the core themes of the narrative. The cruelty of man and how humans tear each other down, often being worse than the devils that walk among them. It's kind of what the whole thing is about. Our Ciel would eat up the fake deep humans are the real monsters trope that seems to pop up a lot in media and was super popular amongst teens in certain online spaces in the 2010s. These are also the same kids that would be super into the normal people scare me quote from American Horror Story. I think he'd also fuck hard with Scooby-Doo for similar reasons, but also Black Butler gets very Scooby-Doo-esque sometimes, so it just fits. Anyway, the cult members think their time has come, that they've finally done it. Some ask for eternal life and wealth. One cult member seems to be unimpressed, though, not taking part in the excitement, instead looking on in a detached way. It's giving Grim Reaper undercover to figure out what's going on at a mass death site and to get a jump start on collecting souls. We know that's something they do, so maybe that could be who this character is. Although there is also theories that this guy could be someone else who may hold significance to the story later on. Some theorize this could potentially be Modri Vladis, a character from the more recent chapters of Black Butler. And by recent, I mean chapters that have been coming out like summer of 2025. I won't get too into it because we don't actually have answers for this. This is literally just theories that are relatively new at the time of making this video. It's just guesses right now, but it's kind of fun to bring up anyway. The demon reaches out to one cult member, who takes this as him being chosen. But instead, the cult member is flung up into the air. The devil is looking for the human who summoned him, the human who is actually entitled to making a contract with it. It flips through different members before its sights land on CL, the terrified child in the cage. The demon recognizes the child as the one who called on him. Our CL has no clue what's going on. He probably didn't even think that demons were real, especially not like this, until one showed up before his eyes. And honestly, given this kid's track record, he probably is not even believing his eyes right now. This kid will straight up say, the occult's not real, demons aren't real. Meanwhile, he has a demon on a leash right next to him. It must suck being 13 years old. Our CL denies that it was him. He never called for a thing like this, but the demon doubles down. No, it was definitely him. The one who denied God and cursed this world. It refers to real CL as the sacrifice that earned our CL the right to have his heart's desire granted. Our CL asks for confirmation. The devil can't possibly mean his brother, but it does. The price our CL has paid to summon the devil is his older brother's soul, going to such drastic lengths as to sacrifice his own blood. That explains how he was able to summon a devil. It speaks with a lack of awareness to the situation. We know that our CL did not have a choice in this. He didn't make this decision to sacrifice his brother. He didn't choose to be a part of any of this. But none of that matters to the devil. And we've seen that our CL continues in the present day to hold guilt for this situation, despite being a helpless victim. His lack of agency does not matter to him here. The devil said it was his fault, so it must be his fault. The devil holds up real CL's corpse, calling for the child in the cage to rejoice. By virtue of the sacrifice, our CL's wish can be granted, and this devil is his slave until the day his wish is fulfilled, and the devil can eat his soul. Our CL claims the devil is lying. He'd never do such a thing. And he's right. Our CL would have never sacrificed his brother to summon a devil, not knowingly. But the devil would not be there if the fare for crossing hadn't been paid, that fare being real CL's soul. Our CL begins to blame himself. He did that? To his brother? The despair is overwhelming as he begins to blame himself for his brother's death. Maybe in his mind, the cult only hurt his brother, and it was his heart that summoned the devil, sealing his brother's fate. This isn't what he wanted. He demands for the devil to give his brother back. The devil remarks how the loud cry our CL had given had intrigued him, but now he sees it's only a baby chick with the shell still on its head. What's done is done, and the devil is here. There's no changing that. The sacrifice cannot be undone. The dead can't come back to life. The devil explains that if our CL wants him gone, he can leave. But due to the significance of the sacrifice, he can make a covenant with the devil. He's earned that right. Our CL is at a standstill. He doesn't know what he should do. It's his fault. If only he had been the one that was chosen, then CL would still be alive. He is not kind, he's not strong, he's not cut out to be an Earl. He believes that no one would be happy to see him come home the sole survivor. I don't believe this to be the truth, though, but he has internalized his insecurities and out-of-context conversations that he's overheard. It's affected how he sees himself and how he thinks others see him. He believes his family would be disappointed to see the spare return. Elizabeth would weep, Aunt Frances and Auntie Anne. They'd ask him why Ciel died when a useless bear like him was still alive. His parents are dead, not even his family dog listened to him. All of this is running through his head, highlighting his flaws and his perceived worthlessness. He sees himself as a child who holds no worth and is not worthy of love on his own if his brother isn't there with him. They come as a set or just real Ciel. There is no option for the spare. Our Ciel can't possibly go on solo, so what should he do? He thinks back to his brother, the one who vowed to protect him, the one who lay dead on the altar. Ciel is not with him anymore because he sacrificed his soul to summon a devil. He must make his choice. Our Ciel reflects on his position. He and his brother look alike, but everything else about them is different. Ciel was strong and kind, but he hated being alone. The child here is weak and a coward, just Ciel's spare. But if he can't turn back time, if he can't bring Ciel back, then he, with this face just like Ciel's, will become the Ciel his brother wanted to be. Our Ciel sheds his own identity, vowing to be the version of his brother in his head, the version he thought his brother would be proud to be if he got to grow up, the protector. He wants power. Real Ciel said it himself earlier in the cage. If only he had more power. So our Ciel wishes for power. The power to take vengeance on those who put him and his brother through all of this. He will make a covenant with the devil. This chapter cover is fucked up, by the way. What do you mean this child and this devil are sat at the table with his dead brother's corpse as the chandelier, dripping blood onto the table? Anyway, our Ciel reaches out from the cage, pushing his head through the bars, making a mental step forwards, as he calls out to the devil. He wants more power. Real Ciel wanted more power. He wants to take revenge. Does he think that's what real Ciel would do in this situation? Probably. I also think this is a really emotionally charged decision being made by a heavily traumatized 10-year-old. However, the version of our Ciel we have in the present of the manga would absolutely make the same decision under more calculated circumstances and without the raw emotion, I think. But take that with a grain of salt because that's the version that Sebastian is raising, and we know he's being raised with a certain level of cruelty to flavor his soul. The child has made his choice, and the devil is willing to accept its new master. The devil explains that they will now carve the mark of the covenant onto their bodies, and the more obvious the location, the more power the contract will have, and the more power will be at the child's disposal. Our Ciel cries out that anywhere will do. He wants more power than anyone else. A childish understanding of power, but one that ends up saving his life, I'd argue. At least giving him borrowed time and the power to handle the life-threatening situations that come with his soon-to-be job. The devil is amused. The child is so small, yet full of such greed. I don't think this is necessarily indicative of our Ciel's greed. Don't get me wrong, he comes from a place of privilege, and historically, nobles and the 1% have been greedy as hell. That's how they got their power and, well, maintain it. Our Ciel having greed is like fork found in the kitchen. I don't think he has more greed than the average noble child or anything, but in this moment, his greed for power is born out of desperation. It is not an act of greed. A form of desperation that has been spurred on by a history of abuse the devil does not know about, and the circumstances at the present that the devil is either ignoring or not fully grasping because it sees a child and knows the sacrifice was more or less attributed to said child, not the adult doing the ritual. The devil, wanting to take advantage of the situation and stepping up to what it has perceived as extreme greed on the child's part, decides to place the covenant mark on our Ciel's eye, the big eye that reflects a hopeless world. Demon magic happens, and the mark is seared into our Ciel's eye. It seems like it was an intense and painful process, leaving blood dripping from his eye. The devil explains that with this power, the child will never again be made to yield to another. He'll never have to be a victim again, because he'll have the power to stand up for himself and stop those who seek to harm him. Now, with the pride of a king and the howl of a wild beast, our Ciel can unleash his desires. The devil eggs the child on. It wants to hear him roar. Our Ciel looks out on the ritual room. He sees the cult members cowering, remembers their abuse, a callback to the moth imagery used a couple chapters back, the moths reflecting the eyes watching. His eyes fall to real Ciel, slaughtered on the altar. The worst moments of his life, a sea of pain and agony that has painted the first month of being 10 years old. The way his life was ruined on what was supposed to be a happy and joyous day. His first order of business is to kill them all. Slaughter the nasty predators that sacrificed his brother. Kill the monsters in human skin that have treated him like an object to defile and offer up to their wicked king. And the devil delivers on its promise, quickly and violently killing the cultists. That in and of itself would have a negative effect on anyone witnessing it. It's another piece of the puzzle to our Ciel's trauma and just another layer of the horrors, except this time he is partly responsible. And I think he internalizes that, although at this particular instance, I don't think is hitting as hard, because they kind of deserved it. Our Ciel throws up, something we've seen him do in times of extreme stress, but also maybe he was just grossed out by all the dead bodies. But this was drawn intentionally and has been a slight reoccurring thing whenever we see this kid go through absolute shit. So I think it's more of a sign of his mental state than anything else right now. He's gone beyond his breaking point and is spiraling further down. The devil finishes the slaughter, then leads the child out of his cage. The devil inquires of the child's name. The child hesitates, taking a moment to look at his dear brother before introducing himself as Ciel Phantomhive. His original identity was left behind in the cage. Now he stood there, before the devil, and claimed to be Ciel Phantomhive, the successor to the title of Earl Phantomhive. His malnourished and filthy form parallel with his dead brother, as a reflection on the water would be paralleled. The devil knows this is a lie. It laughs and transforms into a form more befitting of a servant. "Command me of anything you wish, my little lord." Ciel is shocked at the sudden transformation, which prompts the devil to try on a few more forms, looking for the right one before Ciel says the first one was fine. I get it. Watching demon magic must be shocking. Now with the human form, the devil gets down to business. They must hash out the exact terms of the contract. It conjures a table for the two to sit at and discusses. More power than anyone is all well and good, but the devil needs the child to be more specific. The devil needs parameters, needs a goal to work towards, because it won't knowingly enter a contract that's to its disadvantage. More monster than human, it smiles down on the child. The devil continues to explain that it cannot accept indefinite or unreasonable conditions, such as forever or until the child is satisfied. The conditions must be absolute, concrete, and with definite end. Ciel feels put on the spot, and the devil decides that playing genie will help guide the boy along. 3 wishes of anything Ciel wants. Granting royalty, winning love, wealth, and luxury. Ciel asks about bringing someone back to life. Real Ciel's dead body center frame lined up to appear as if it's on the table these two sit at. The devil understands. He's asking about bringing his brother back. It claims that it can promise many peaceful and happy days. It is lying. Our Ciel recalls how the devil told him himself that the fair for crossing would never return. That means that the devil cannot resurrect the dead, nor can it turn back the clock. Ciel is gaining his wits, playing games with the devil to get a feel for the situation, and to find where he should set his own boundaries. Ciel understands that the devil wasn't talking about bringing back the dead, but instead making him believe the dead had returned. The devil is amused. This child has caught on. The devil praises Ciel. He's got a good mind and great intuition. and makes light of the trauma he was literally experiencing moments ago and his reaction to it. The devil doesn't get why the distinction between something being true and Ciel believing it to be true matters. But Ciel does not want to live in a fantasy. He realizes that the devil had no intention of striking a fair deal, evident by the fact that it's trying to talk him into living a life of delusion. So what should he do? How should he handle this? He's got all this power he's gained, so how should he use it? What would his brother do in this situation? Falling into the idea of his brother's mentality, he recalls how Ciel enjoyed chess, only getting a good match when playing against him or their father. This is just one big chess match with the devil. What's the opponent's next move? How can he play the game to his advantage? How does a child keep a devil under control? His first wish. The devil is to never lie to him. The devil laughs. What an amusing idea. The one-sided game is beginning to become more of a fair match. Ciel specifies that the devil shall only answer his questions with absolute truth. Note this does not cover lying by omission, which we see Sebastian take advantage of, most notably in the Jack the Ripper case, when he withholds the information that Jack the Ripper isn't just an ordinary human. His second wish. The devil must obey his commands without question. Revenge on the people who did this to him and his family. The devil at first wishes to just go and get it over with. However, Ciel has more parameters to that wish. There's no point in the devil getting revenge on his behalf. He wants to get to the bottom of why his family was attacked and who did it, not just slaughtering the slave traders who put him in this mess to begin with, and he wants to uncover the mastermind, gain an understanding, to have an active role in his own revenge. They can't just go killing anyone they think could be involved. They must investigate, and Ciel will kill the person himself for that extra special dose of closure. To say his wish is revenge doesn't do the whole desire justice. He doesn't simply wish for vengeance. Instead, he wishes to understand why this happened. He currently knows nothing, and he doesn't want to die without knowing the full truth. Yeah, he wants revenge. He wants to be the one to do the revenge. The devil will just be a tool for him to use. But the devil tries to talk him out of it, saying it's silly when he can just take care of things himself with the powers beyond human comprehension. This back and forth on revenge and how to get it is what prompts Ciel to come up with the second wish. He realizes the devil has his own thoughts on how things should be done and tries to lead Ciel to this less satisfying end. So the obedience parameter must be set. The devil is beginning to realize this child may be smarter than anticipated. The devil asks for the third wish, but Ciel needs a break to rest. Not realizing it's not a direct command, allegedly, and ready to inflict violence and get this whole thing over with, the devil wraps shadowy tendrils around the child and lifts him off, likely to let him rest in death. It claims it can't tell the difference between a real command and normal speech, prompting Ciel to clarify that the obedience to commands is only applicable when he specifically says, "I command you," or "that's an order," as it's most commonly translated in the anime. The devil likes this addition to the second condition, and Ciel knows this is all a game, and that was absolutely done on purpose. The devil, however, is afraid this child will not be able to do what he aims to do in terms of revenge. Ciel realizes that he is just a child, though. He can't do anything on his own, and he is more than aware of his own shortcomings. This leads to his last wish. He's managed to restrict the devil's words and actions, and now he must advocate for his safety. Ciel feels he can't trust anyone anymore, especially after what has happened to him here with this cult, after they gained his trust. He wants to make sure that the devil will not betray him, won't take on the next best contractor and leave him vulnerable or kill him. He wants to make sure that he can reach his goal without the devil compromising him or having other contractors that cause an issue. The devil reassures him, though. It never takes multiple contractors, as a rule. Some devils are greedy and gluttonous, but this one is more into elegance. It's in it for the long game, not just getting as many souls as possible. The devil asks for clarification. Does protecting the child from attacks and death also include disease? It could be done by extreme measures like absorbing the child into its own body to protect him from the elements, or by making the body healthy, but that would have been a separate wish, and Ciel has already reached his 3 wishes. They decide that outside attacks are the only ones the devil is responsible for. The devil explains that the wish of protection without betrayal can be interpreted as an unlawful, as it's technically 2 wishes in one. But it'll compromise because it's nice. Ciel is beginning to be very annoyed by this, actually, devil, and honestly, so am I. His 3rd wish, the devil must protect him without betrayal until his revenge comes to fruition. As they make these terms to the contract, there is demon magic going on, showcasing the terms going into effect and becoming a part of their covenant. Ciel is the devil's one and only master, and it his faithful slave who protects and speaks true. Their covenant shall remain valid until the day his revenge is accomplished, and when it's done, and their agreement has come to an end, the devil shall claim the child's soul as a reward. Contract made, terms discussed, and parameters hashed out, Ciel now has a devil on a leash, and the devil has its next meal in the crock pot, slowly marinating until it's fully cooked. Ciel doesn't understand why his soul has to be taken, though. His brother's soul was already eaten. The devil explains again that real Ciel's soul was the price for being summoned. It was like the plane ticket there. Our Ciel soul is the price for the contract, the price for the service. Kind of filthy that it kept it a secret, kind of, until the covenant had been formed, and did definitely make it sound like real Ciel soul was the price already paid, giving this child all the power to wield. I could see why our Ciel is confused. It's a dirty trick, and one that I wish our Ciel would think more about instead of blaming himself for real Ciel's death. Because he didn't use his death for that power. That power is being paid for by his own death at the end of the story. I'm gonna look real stupid if that's not how Black Butler ends. But y'all get the point. That's not really how trauma and survivor's guilt work, I guess, so our Ciel is not gonna dwell on that. Having this cleared up, though, he understands and is okay with that. I'm not sure if this child envisioned a future post-revenge or had tunnel vision and is now relieved that he won't have to live with this pain forever. There is an end in sight, and he knows he'll be safe until then, never falling victim again as he did before. There's comfort in that, in knowing how you'll die and knowing things won't be as bad as they've been. For all the horrors Ciel has experienced in the text of Black Butler, nothing hits as hard as the month he spent being trafficked, abused, and treated like livestock. Worse than livestock, actually. So knowing that the rest of his life will be lived in relative comfort, knowing that his safety is guaranteed, and knowing that he has all of this power to protect himself and work towards revenge, and he doesn't have to go through the stress of figuring out how to be an adult, man's got it made. The devil is surprised that Ciel took this well once he understood, but Ciel replies that servants must be paid their wages. Would the devil rather he refuse? He then says he wants nothing but revenge, so this all works out. He has no will to live. He just wants knowledge and to get even with those who hurt him. This is all going to work out just fine, as long as the devil holds up its end of the bargain. Ciel then asks what happens to a soul once it's been eaten. The devil claims that nothing happens. Prior to the arrival of Judgment Day, it simply disappears. Judgment Day is a concept in various religions, not just Christianity. The idea is basically a day where whatever divine authority you worship will judge everyone based on their actions and beliefs. It's often associated with the end of the world, and in Christian religions, it is very much like, hey, everything's over, we're all burning, the world is over, let's find out who's going to heaven, who's going to hell. It's not like a game show. I'm not entirely sure what exact version of Judgment Day Yana Toboso may be referencing, if that even matters. Part of me wants to lean towards the Christian understanding, given the fact that this story is set in England, which, is a Christian nation at the time of the story taking place, but also the fact that season 1 of the anime turned into a demon versus angel fight. It's possible Black Butler has influences from lots of backgrounds, though, and creative liberties are always an option. But basically, Judgment Day is canon, or at the very least, Sebastian the Demon believes that Judgment Day will eventually come. And until that day, souls are just eaten and disappear, just hanging out in a demon's digestive tract. The child is pleased with this idea, though. Staying Ciel forever would be hard for him. He has a goal in mind, the end in sight, and can push forward enough, pretending to be his brother until he reaches his end. Not a moment longer. One last thing, though, he's got to retrieve the Phantom Hive family ring. He's certain it's still somewhere in real Ciel's digestive tract. He needs the ring because in his mind, that's what will prove he is who he says he is. The devil thinks the ring may have moved through and has been passed at this point, but Ciel is certain it's still in his brother's body. Honestly, it's possible the ring could have gotten stuck and been a blockage in the intestines or something. That's a chunky ring. I'm not gonna swallow it for science, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was just kind of stuck in there. They were also malnourished, so I don't know if real Ciel was regular during that month, His body was holding on to all the nutrients it could maintain. The devil praises him for being a good little brother, understanding his brother so well. It then reveals that there appears to be a circular piece of metal left in the abdomen. He knew all along. Ciel realizes that his brother really was planning to go home with him, a bittersweet sentiment after how things have turned out. The devil offers to retrieve the ring, but Ciel doesn't want it to touch his brother. It's his duty as the now eldest son and the heir. He takes the sacrificial dagger. He thinks back on the fact that only the Earl of Phantom Hive has the right to wear the ring, and he plunges it into real Ciel's abdomen, sacrificing him for a second time to gain the ring and the power it represents. He must do it himself, no matter what it takes, because of what it stands for what it means. Covered in blood, he sits on the floor by the altar, crying. Trying to pierce the flesh while avoiding bones and locating the ring isn't quite in the realm of possibility for a child with no medical knowledge. The devil also points out that Ciel is on the verge of throwing up. Thanks. Just really rubbing salt in that wound there. It offers once again to help, and Ciel gives in. He can't do it alone, and the devil steps up where he has failed. The devil notes that Ciel has made quite a mess of his brother. Just because you set your mind to something doesn't mean everything will work out your way. Our Ciel realizes it must have been the same for his father and his brother. This is the toxic life advice he's now growing up with. Hate that for him. The devil retrieves the ring and plops it into Ciel's hand, dripping blood and all. It congratulates the child, addressing him as the Earl Ciel Phantom Hive. But then it corrects. It agreed to never lie to him. Ciel agrees. Don't you ever call me by my name again. He is now Earl Ciel Phantom Hive, but to have this cheeky devil who ate Earl Ciel Phantom Hive and knows the truth address him as such is probably painful, a slap in the face if you will. He locks in though. The devil is no longer permitted to address him casually by name, or stand in front of him. The devil is now his servant and must act like it. From this day forth, the devil is his dog. Devil on its leash and ring in bloody hand, our Ciel mourns the loss of his brother, apologizing for not being able to take him with him, their promise to one another broken. He then orders the devil to burn everything. The bodies, the building, all of it. The devil comments how this is a wise decision. Get rid of the evidence, and his lie becomes near perfect. Our Ciel doesn't appreciate the comment. The devil is painting this child to be cool and calculated when he's really just doing his best to make it out of a dire situation, taking any means he deems necessary to survive. Also, the devil is a yapper from day one. Hate to see it. We've been knowing Sebastian loves a good info dump and loves to chatter about whatever's going on around him, and our Ciel has hated it from day one. We love to see a consistent duo. With a snap of its finger, the devil sets the room ablaze. Our Ciel looks back on his brother as the flames surround the altar. That's him. On paper, at least. The surviving brother will be the strong and brave Ciel, and his original identity as the crybaby spare is left to burn in the ash. The devil offers its hand to the boy, but he slaps it away. The animosity that characterizes Ciel's outlook towards his butler is already manifesting. It's been pretty clear already that part of why Ciel seems to hate or hold resentment towards Sebastian the butler is because the demon is a manifestation of the worst time in his life and is the one who ate his brother's soul, finalizing his death. And this was true from the very second the two met. It's nice to see it spelled out, but I do think our Ciel also holds more resentment after realizing the devil wanted to play games and not make a fair deal at first. This was all some sort of game and the devil thought it could pull one over on him. And that probably doesn't help one build trust and a more peaceful dynamic. Our Ciel pushes forward on his own, with the devil by his side. We know the rest of the story. We've seen it in flashbacks in the luxury liner arc. We don't need to rehash those. Back in the present, our Ciel looks on in horror as real Ciel laughs at him. Real Ciel is stepping back into his older brother role, telling his younger brother he doesn't have to cry. He won't scold him for lying. Instead, he won't forgive anyone who accuses our Ciel of lying. Real Ciel is proud. He applauds his brother for doing his best all by himself. But it's okay. He doesn't have to do it anymore, because Ciel is back now. A twisted moment of our Ciel getting what he wanted in the past, to live up to someone his brother could be proud of. He's gotten that approval now, but it's all wrong. This can't be. Our Ciel knows that real Ciel cannot be standing before him right now. He saw the slaughter, he touched the lifeless body, the devil himself confirmed multiple times that it devoured the soul. He watched as flames enveloped the corpse. By all accounts, that is not Ciel Phantom Hive. His brothers should not be here. And they're right. The voice of the mastermind confirms as much to them. In an attempt to lighten the mood just a tad, we see an anatomic model come around the corner. But our Ciel and Sebastian are a little too locked in to this life-changing serious moment. Who could this possibly be? It's Undertaker. In all his unserious glory. He's in a jovial mood, talking as if he hasn't been an antagonist in the story for a while. Our Ciel is starting to piece things together. Undertaker took Ciel. Undertaker isn't willing to just give all of his secrets out, though. Not without payment. You know the usual, you know how this works. We've been here before. However, the amusement from watching the Phantom 5 and the whole boy band arc of the previous story arc has been payment enough. Undertaker admits to rescuing real Ciel's body from the flames that day because there would be no way to bring him back if his body had burned to cinder. The very issue Undertaker had with Vincent. Undertaker had the intention of reviving the Phantom Hive line, at least since he discovered Vincent's death. Possibly prior, but I think Vincent's death is what spurred this thinking about it and actively working towards making it happen. I feel like this points towards Undertaker being the lover of Claudia Phantom Hive, and perhaps the father of Vincent and Francis. Why else would he have a mourning locket for Claudia and care so deeply for Vincent and the Phantom Hive twins? Some people also prefer to see this as Undertaker's love for Vincent, maybe in a more romantic sense and less familial. And while I can see that, I knew about the Grandpa Undertaker theory long before I entertained the thought of shipping them. So that's the lens I see their potential dynamic through, and that's the one I'm really attached to. So that's my bias. Undertaker also takes on this weirdly caring role for Ciel, and it would be strange to be so invested and want to revive the man he simply worked with, and actually revive the said child of said associate. He's got to have a deeper connection to the Phantom Hive family to make any of this make sense. Sebastian asks why Undertaker would go to such lengths to restore Ciel's life, but Undertaker states that Sebastian would never understand. He simply could not bear to lose another Phantom Hive. As he says this, Undertaker puts his arm around real Ciel, holding him close in a semi-protective manner. That's his grandson. I'm lying, but I'm not lying. It's not confirmed, but that doesn't mean it's not true. We'll never know. That's another point of, I'm gonna look real silly if that ends up not being true, if it ever gets addressed at all. Our Ciel and Sebastian take a moment to process what Undertaker said. Sebastian starts to realize that Undertaker is much more involved in the Phantom Hive house than he initially thought. He questions what manner of attachment Undertaker has to the family, but Undertaker does not specify. He actually says he'll leave it up to Sebastian's imagination. So he's confirming he's grandpa. However, none of this concerns the devil. Real Ciel takes charge of the scene again, stating that a mere servant shouldn't speak without permission of his master, and that it's offensive to the ear, seeming to take on a stern front, uncaring of the humanity of the servants. Real Ciel knows that Sebastian is a demon, and the one that ate his soul and took his brother. He's probably Sebastian's #1 hater. I will gladly give him that title. Real Ciel puts on the smiles again to address his brother. He confirms that he did in fact die that day, but he's back now. So it's fine. He's here to be reunited with his only family that he has left, and he is so glad. Our Ciel, though, has respect for the life cycle and the natural order of the world. That, and I think being able to revive the dead, ruins his self-destructive post-revenge death wish. He says that reviving the dead is madness. Real Ciel is a bit confused, though. Isn't he happy to see his brother? Our Ciel has grown and changed so much over the past 3 to 4 years. He's gone through so much that has hardened him, and he has spent so much time trying to emulate how he thought his brother and father would handle situations. He's not the same little kid from before. He's not going to just run back into his brother's arms. In many ways, our Ciel has grown far more independent. At least, as much as he can be while still depending on servants to tend to his daily needs. He's emotionally independent. Our Ciel never had the same level of codependency that Real Ciel exhibited in childhood. Sure, he loved his brother and wanted to spend time with him and did rely on him for strength, but he also did not feel that he needed to plan his whole life around his brother. They were two separate people with their own futures. I do think Real Ciel would not have done as well if the roles were reversed. If he had truly been the one to survive, there would have been a readjustment period for sure, or he would have latched onto Sebastian or someone else like Lizzie or another servant to replace the dependency he had on his brother. Undertaker cuts things off, explaining that Real Ciel had a lot of episodes to work with. Lots of hopes for the future, lots of ideas of what his life would look like. But Undertaker's reanimation skills needed time to improve. Real Ciel is his masterpiece, his magnum opus. He's aged up the body, matching the growth to our Ciel's, since the two were mirror twins. Not a stitch of seam in sight. He's perfect. And he can think and move on his own. In Undertaker's eyes, Real Ciel, the one that stood before them today, was no different from a living human being. I am so curious to see how all of this will play out. Being unable to revive the dead has been a huge narrative consistency in fiction across the board. It's one of those grief is hard and you can't regain what you lost lessons that humans are always experiencing and having to learn as we grow and lose our loved ones. And up until now, it's been a major theme in Black Butler. It's our Ciel's outlook on life. It's the advice that he gave Soma when they first met. It's the truth that was strung through Undertaker's folly as he continued to play God, creating bizarre dolls that were just zombies with varying degrees of advancements. And now he stands with something that should be impossible, that throws the entire narrative theme out the window, or at least it appears to. See, one thing to remember, bizarre dolls do not have souls, and souls is one of the equations that makes a human being. And by equations, I mean ingredients in the equation of making a human being. This swap up on the narrative theme and what we think is possible fills the readers with a sense of dread. One, for how this messes with our CL's agenda, but there's also the thought of how will this eventually blow up in Undertaker's face? How will this go wrong? When will the other shoe drop? Humans have been telling stories about trying to revive the dead and failing for centuries. It's something that has been brought up consistently throughout fiction, and it always fails. It always goes wrong. So, even if Yana Toboso is not necessarily planning on this to go wrong, we're still sitting here with the context of all of human history, knowing how this usually plays out and waiting for it to come to fruition. And if it never does, that's kind of a horror in and of itself. Also, not the clouds getting darker and my light source getting darker as I'm talking about the horrors of reviving the dead. I should turn on a light. Sebastian thinks that he's figured out that all the previous attempts at reanimating the dead was just byproducts of Undertaker's attempt to revive CL. Undertaker specifies that it wasn't byproducts, but merely the beginning. It was his testing phase. Undertaker explains how it was only recently that his dolls could move independently, but the experiment began the night he took Real CL's body home. He laid the child in one of his custom coffins and put the body back together, little by little, over a long period of time. I know he's a mortician and a Grim Reaper, so he would have advanced knowledge of anatomy and death, but I feel like he'd have to have been prepared to do this, or at the very least have the idea that he could do this, potentially. Sure, he could have come up with the idea the moment he found out Vincent had died and the twins were missing, and he would have had a month to at least figure out some of the basics of the idea before finding the twins. That is plausible. I am of the thought that Undertaker's explanation to his motives back in the Campania arc or the Luxury Liner arc isn't entirely wrong. It's just one side of the story. He was curious and wanted to experiment to see what was possible. And I do think he would have eventually come down this path regardless of what happened to the Phantom Hives. Losing the Phantom Hives was the catalyst to this in canon, but I think he would have ended up at this destination regardless. I wouldn't be surprised if reanimating the dead was at the very least a passing thought Undertaker had had for a while, long before the Phantom Hives were attacked. Our CL asks where Real CL has been if Undertaker has had him this whole time, and been working on bringing him back to life. Real CL reveals that he's always been by his dear brother's side. The realization hits our CL like a ton of bricks. His brother was there when he came to uncover what Auntie Anne did. There in the coffin, our CL would use as a seat whenever he visited Undertaker. He was there the night Baron Kelvin's mansion burned down. The night our CL torched it all to escape the torment of the past. Even in death, this kid knows his brother and sees what's at his heart. He sees our CL the way I do. He was there when they sailed to America and reenacted the Titanic with zombies. He was there at Weston. I also think it's funny Real CL agrees the school was stuffy and bad. Makes me wonder if his opinion was based more on what he knew about things going on behind the scenes, or if it was because he spent his time hiding. Either way, really funny knowing both twins likely would have gone to that school for real if the attack never happened and they got to have normal childhoods. Real CL has been by our CL's side all along, catching up with him just the way the readers have, for the most part. So clearly he's only been there for the cases Undertaker was involved with, and due to Yana Toboso just going down memory lane for the readers as well, hitting at the highlights of the manga, it appears Real CL didn't really have consciousness before the manga took place. Not sure if that's an intentional detail or just a symptom of only wanting to bring up already fleshed out events. I do find it funny that Real Ciel didn't know about the start of Ciel and Soma's friendship, nor did he know about the murder mystery party, both of which I think he would have had very strong negative opinions about. And if Undertaker was involved with the Phantom High family, as I think he was, he would know that Real Ciel is a little bit quirky and probably shouldn't have been around for those things. Not really what happened, but it is kind of funny to think about it in that way. But we've walked down memory lane long enough. Grell comes smashing through the window. She's got a flair for the dramatic, highlighted by the fact that Othello comes in through the front door like a normal person. To be fair though, Grell busting in while the atmosphere was already tense is really funny, and she should do that more often. The Reapers have finally found their target, and Othello thinks it's time they hurry up and get on with the spanking. Yeah, so he's a freak, affectionately. His partnership with Grell and the way they mesh well together makes so much more sense now. Othello gets down to business, sharing his fascination with Undertaker bringing the dead back to life. He wants to pick Undertaker's brain, more or less. Undertaker does feel that Othello also thinks he's lost it, and Othello is the last person he wants to hear that from. That alone tells me that A, they've known each other before Undertaker deserted, and B, Othello is also cuckoo crazy nuts, mad scientist kind of vibe. The kind of guy who's so driven to learn as much as he can and isn't below unconventional or unethical means. Kind of like Hanji from Attack on Titan. Undertaker wonders why Othello, the recluse of the forensic department, is out on a mission. Undertaker's been causing so much trouble though, Othello can't focus on his research. He's here to dish out some serious discipline. Undertaker isn't scared though. Othello doesn't pose much of a physical threat, and Undertaker has already won in a fight against everyone else in that room. He's fine. Grell and Sebastian look on as Othello attacks, a build-up to something grand, but he can't even manage to throw his scythe far enough to actually do anything. It's a pathetic display that leaves the room befuddled. There's a break in the tension as Undertaker laughs at how his old associate is just how he remembered. Othello shares that he even made a machine that lets him work out without moving. Worse than physically weak, he has no interest in getting better. Not that that's like necessarily a character flaw, but it's showing us that Othello is maybe a little bit lazy and also completely uninterested in being able to win in a fight. There's a moment of Grell and the narrative noting that this has taken the common trope and flipped it on its head. The character who pretends to be weak but is secretly a badass, the character who's stronger than they let on. But that's not Othello. He's exactly what you see on the tin. Just a little guy. This does initiate a fight of sorts. Undertaker flexes his power. He's not going to submit to Othello's dissecting table. Not yet, at least. He asks the Reapers to leave. Grell, however, is ready to pick things up where she left them in her fight against Undertaker. Part 2 to the grand battle on the Campania. Complete with Sebastian's interference. He also has been eluded by Undertaker and wishes to capture the man, and he's doing his part in making sure the Phantom Hive Manor isn't destroyed. Real Ciel, however, does not appreciate Sebastian speaking as if this place is his home. He's the owner of the house. And if tensions couldn't get any higher, the police are now on the scene. I'm sorry, Scotland Yard? What are you doing here? Behind them is Alexis and Edward as well. Oh boy, there's so many people in this house right now. Kind of too many. Apparently, they had been tipped off. Blavatsky and his conspirators are hiding out in the Phantom Hive Manor, allegedly. Aberline realizes as he asks Ciel to explain himself that there are 2 Ciels? Alexis and Edward look on in horror as the dead stand before them. Real Ciel confirms what they see. He reintroduces himself, says he's been through a lot, but he's finally home where he discovered his little brother posing as him. Everyone looks on in disbelief. Those who didn't even know there was a twin brother, those who thought the twin was dead, those who didn't realize who had returned 3, almost 4 years ago at this point in the timeline. Edward doesn't believe it, but a voice that he trusts calls out to confirm. It is as CL says. The one who has been lying all along is him. Elizabeth emerges onto the steps, pointing at RCL. Tears in her eyes as she takes part in revealing the truth. RCL looks up at her. Nothing but a small thing betrayed by what he thought to be true. His lies out in the open for everyone to know. His little life torn to pieces while a corpse reclaims its rightful identity. Now that Lizzie has been confirmed safe, or at the very least by real CL's side, which I do think is not dangerous for her, at least physically, we can all breathe a sigh of relief, kind of. All of this is beginning to make sense to Sebastian, though. Lizzie didn't want to leave the music hall because she'd returned with real CL, her true betrothed, the one she was truly loyal to. Edward wants answers. Why did Lizzie keep this to herself? Why didn't CL come back right away? Real CL explains that he had been incapacitated, but Lizzie was able to help him return. Alexis is also having a hard time following what's going on. The elder brother, presumed dead, is actually alive, and the younger brother had been posing as him the whole time. That does not make sense. He wants answers, and as the guardian to Earl Phantom Hive, he has the right to know. I think it's more like he's the guardian of the title while the twins were missing, and now that there's confusion on who the Earl truly is, not the actual legal guardian of CL, I think. I don't know. But also, it would make sense as well, assuming the Midfords are the closest living relatives, and CL is, a minor. So, yeah, they probably are his legal guardians. They definitely would be if this were set in the modern day. Real CL is cooperative. He'll tell it all. Our CL will too, right? This is all a game to real CL. A game he has control over. A game that's just torturing his dear brother. He's playing at getting revenge on his little brother for how things have played out. Before either can explain, the police finds jars of blood, like the ones from the music hall, and Blavad is here too, apparently. Our CL puts together the pieces he has been trying to ignore. The weird things going on throughout the Blue Cult arc that didn't entirely add up. It's clear as day now. The leader of the cult, Lord Sirius, is in fact... It's clearly real CL and Undertaker at the head here, but the thought is cut. Blavat is assumed to be the head by the police, but he explains that he is just a missionary. Lord Sirius is special. He's built different. Blavat explains that he's just a fortune teller, and a bad one at that, who was drawn to the light of the blue star. The music hall would grant sparkle to lost and wandering stardust, the patrons, offering entertainment and food, but was also a place for collecting radiance, aka blood, for their guiding light, Lord Sirius. Blavat is a little blasé about people dying. Sadly, they were sacrificed in the process, but Lord Sirius, the life of a first magnitude star, is of far more value, allegedly. It had to be done. He is a fanatic, so deep into this cult it's twisted up his sense of humanity, if he ever had any to begin with. Or at least that's how he is trying to come off. Part of me thinks Blavat is kind of acting as a paid actor here, but also I think in order for him to be so devout, to risk his life and willingly get arrested in all of this, he probably does genuinely believe in whatever spirituality the Blue Cult was selling. I think he is a fanatic, but I think he also is a paid actor, if that makes sense. Not that he's like literally an actor, but you know what I mean. The police are rightfully outraged at hearing this. There were innocent lives lost. Blavat assures that he thinks these people would be happy knowing they helped Lord Sirius shine, and he's sure this mess he's in now will be fine. The stars are guiding them even now. Blavat addresses his blue star, Lord Sirius, but he's looking at our CL instead. Ciel is being framed as the head of the Sphere Music Hall cult. Sebastian sees this trap and acknowledges that Ciel is right where they want him. The evidence has all been planted. Blavat was found in his manor, gave testimony of his supposed identity, and the supposed dead twin makes everything all the more messy. Edward stands up for his cousin, though, at least on the idea that the Phantom Music Hall was being a second venue to the Sphere Music Hall. However, the number of victims did go up since the second music hall opened. The police and Edward don't know this is because the Sphere Music Hall had to draw more blood from a dwindling audience, causing more deaths, not the other way around. Aberline gets it though, and he tries to explain, but he can't blow Ciel's secret job as the watchdog. The lower ranks don't know about it. Although that explanation will work for Edward and Alexis, which I think is more important for them to understand what actually happened. Who knows if they'll ever get that explanation. None of this, though, can explain the charge of identity theft. And yeah, he did do that for real. Oops. The situation is dire for our dear boy, and everyone knows it. Sebastian recognizes when they've lost the fight. Aberline, unhappy about how things have gone, concedes. Earl, no. Mr. Phantom Hive is the prime suspect in the Sphere Music Hall serial murders, and he's being taken into the yard for questioning. Anyone else getting flashbacks to season 1 of the anime when Ciel was framed for drug trafficking? Because I sure am. It also sucks that Aberline knows Ciel's involvement with this case is due to his role as the Queen's watchdog, and he is pretty much innocent in that regard, but he must play along with the rest of the yard. Ciel is in a hole now, and Aberline can't help him out. Not yet, at least. Ciel was too stunned this whole chapter to really get a word in. He's hardly said a thing since his brother came back, actually. The rug has been fully pulled out from under him, and he's been outplayed, dethroned, and tossed to the gutter. Rest in peace to our boy. Can I just say, a lot of the chapters in this arc have been started with a redraw of how the previous chapter ended. Anyway, yeah, Ciel is getting arrested. He's cooperating, and Sebastian is being taken in as well, since they're always together. Aberline is so polite with it, might I add. Aberline knows that Ciel is innocent on all accounts aside from identity theft, but that's a different issue with a perfectly non-criminal answer, I'm sure. And Aberline is willing to hear out this child because he sees Ciel for his inherent worth as a human being and also recognizes that Ciel is a child. So he should get a little bit more grace. Yana Toboso does make a point to show us the Phantom Hive ring still on Ciel's finger though, a symbol of the status he's held and a symbol of what real Ciel is trying to reclaim, and with it still being on his finger, it tells me that things are not entirely lost yet. He still holds some ounce of power that he can wield against his brother and fix this whole mess, potentially. Finney is ready to throw down for his master, though. He declares that he would never do such a thing, and there has to be a mistake. Bard holds him back, though, putting on a tough and nonchalant act, asking who will pay them now. Snake, or more accurately, Emily, is mad that Bard is focusing on money, but Sebastian just answers him, unfazed. They'll have to come collect it later. Yeah, so this is code. Bard's not actually talking about getting paid. He does genuinely care about the well-being of his master. More arguably, he might care about Sebastian. He's not talking about getting paid. He's talking about picking up the rest of his Phantom fam. I'm gonna be clinging on to the idea of Phantom fam till the day I die, quite frankly. Blavat is the only one seemingly getting manhandled, by the way. I think that's kind of funny. Everyone knows he's kind of scum and undeserving of respect. I also just love how pathetic he's gotten in this chapter. The 3 suspects are locked away in the police carriage. Rain still pouring down, the Phantom fam servants watch from the front porch. Finney taking this whole thing the hardest. That's his little brother. That's his master. That is the person who saw him as a human being and gave him a life outside of being a science experiment. Finney owes everything to Ciel, and Ciel is just being ripped away. I don't know if Finney got the whole code thing, but even if he did, it's still upsetting to watch this happen to someone you care about. Aberline then remembers Othello and Grell exist, but when he returns, they are long gone. They had better things to do than get wrapped up in mortal police cases. But they search for them anyway, because, they don't know that those are Grim Reapers. Leaving the family to discuss, Alexis still needs his answers. Real Ciel orders Tanaka to take Alexis to the drawing room and provide tea. He's got a long story to tell. I really wonder if Alexis gets the whole spiel of it, or if he gets a no supernatural business version. I would love to know how much they know. Alexis does tell Elizabeth to go home. They have been so worried for her. She apologizes, but wants to stay by Ciel's side. Real Ciel assures her that she's fine now. She can go. He's sure Aunt Frances is worried sick, so she agrees to go home with Edward. Edward is glad that she's safe and asks if she's sure that she's not hurt. She's fine though. He then asks again, why didn't she tell them that Ciel was alive? Lizzie breaks. She didn't know what to do. She hadn't noticed. She never realized that Ciel she'd spent the past 3 to 4 years with wasn't actually Ciel. She made being his bride and how much she loved him her entire personality, and she couldn't even tell who she was talking to. And if real Ciel never returned, she would have never known. She's so torn up about not being able to tell the twins apart, but to her credit, why would she assume she's being lied to? And also, she did notice something was off. She did notice that things were wrong, that it wasn't who she was speaking with. Maybe she didn't realize exactly that's what was happening because she didn't expect her own cousin to lie to her. She does realize that all the times she thought something was off was actually her realizing that Ciel wasn't who he said he was, but she never believed for a moment the boy who came back wasn't Ciel. And once she saw real Ciel, her first thought was, now what? No, hi, happy to see you. How was she supposed to face him knowing she could not tell the difference between him and his twin brother pretending to be him? She was mad at our Ciel for lying, for putting her in this position. She felt he was mocking her, but then she realized that she's actually the cruel one here. If it hadn't been Ciel who came back initially, would she have been as happy? She recognizes that she had a favorite twin, that she may not have been able to appreciate who came back for who was lost. It's similar to the predicament Madame Red had. Her joy for seeing her nephew return alive was muddled by the loss of Vincent and her sister. Grief is hard, and I don't think that makes Lizzie a bad person for feeling differently about the twins. It seems like she spent a lot more time with real Ciel and had a future planned with him, and overall they had a closer and stronger bond. Our Ciel was just the sickly brother she saw every now and then when he was feeling up to it. She's not horrible for not having as much of an attachment to him, but she sees this disparity in her love for her cousins, in her grief for each one, and feels horrible about it. She thinks that if she knew who stood before her and who actually died, she'd had wished Ciel would be the one to survive. Hey girl, the guy who did come back feels the exact same way, don't even worry about it. But the idea of being so unfair tears her up inside. It hurts her to know she could feel that way about her cousin, and she feels like an awful person for it. She knew Undertaker and Real Ciel were up to no good, but she couldn't take the idea of Real Ciel dying again. She spent the last 3 years becoming someone who could protect her beloved, someone who could fight to save those she cared about. And she wasn't going to let a little crime stop her from sticking by her betrothed. Edward holds his sister, and remembers what Paula had told him earlier. If something you held most dear suddenly shattered one day, what would you do? He realizes now that Paula was talking about protecting Lizzie, that she was talking about Lizzie's predicament, her emotional turmoil, and her resolve to piece together what she had left and protect it. Edward really feels for her, and he hates that she's been put in this situation. Ever since she was little, Lizzie always loved CL. She believed that her love for him was true. No one tell her that it's just loving your family mixed with romanticizing the future assigned to her. That's all it is. Lizzie realized, though, that the true love she felt was a lie, and neither CL or her love were real. The past few years was just an elaborate bit they were playing out for one another. Cousins by chance, lovers by choice, or whatever. That's a terrible joke, I'm sorry. I do really like this direction for Lizzie's character growth. She's realizing the fairy tale she's built up in her head is not her reality, and even the love that she felt wasn't actually romantic love one would hope to find for their fiancé. Her feelings are mixed with grief and the pain of betrayal. And it sucks because I think a part of why this has hit her so hard is because she feels like her anger at the situation is unfair. And maybe she realizes exactly why she was lied to. I don't think Lizzie is in the wrong here. Grief is complicated, and she's playing a game of what-ifs, thinking the worst-case scenario and then judging herself for it. She's ride or die for CL to a fault, and that's coming to bite her. But I think her realizing the truth of her feelings, realizing that she's not actually in love with him, is going to set her on a new path. She knows real CL right now is doing wrong. She's angry at our CL for what he kept from her. I'm not sure if she'll come to our CL's side to take down his brother, or if she'll remain on real CL's side, but she's starting to grow up and figure herself out. She's got a long way to go, but I wouldn't be surprised if she learns to let go of both twins. I do believe without a shadow of a doubt that Lizzie cares for both of these boys. It's part of why she's so upset with herself for the potential thoughts she knows are unfair and cruel to our CL. And she's grown and bonded with him over these past few years. Sure, under false pretense, but that was still time spent together getting to know him more. I don't see her willingly helping to hurt our CL. And I only see her working against real CL if she begins to see him more as a bizarre doll and not a human being, either through cruel and inhumane actions on his part or learning more information about how all of this works. Who knows? That would come down to whatever Yana Toposo is wanting to work with here in regards to real CL's revival and how much humanity he actually retains. But I'm excited to see the journey Lizzie could potentially go on. The police carriage charges on through the downpour. Blavat, CL, and Sebastian all sit in cuffs while Blavat yaps away. Complaints about how rough the ride is, wishing they'd been more careful with Lord Sirius on board. He then moves to teasing. How does it feel to go from being the head of a distinguished earldom to a serial killer packed right off to jail in one night? I'd say it feels pretty bad, but I don't think that specific issue is what CL's mind is focused on right now. Sebastian flips the question, though. Blavat, once a charismatic fortune teller, now a prisoner. He's fallen as well, but it doesn't seem to faze him. Blavat reveals it's all a part of his job. Sebastian didn't realize it was a seer's job to frame him and CL for his own crimes. Blavat moves past that and onto his prediction, though, which was right. A star drawn to a black hole collapser strays from its orbit, doomed to wander the murk for all eternity. It's just as he said. Sebastian doesn't think so, though. It's just hot readings, collecting information in advance. But Blavat knew the moment he laid eyes on Sebastian that he was different. Hey, what do you mean by that? You know he's a demon? Are you saying he's hot? I'm gonna need you to explain. Before either one can elaborate or ask more questions, the officer up front yells for them to shut up. Blavat sits back, ready to accept whatever is coming his way. He wonders how long they'll have to sit in the carriage being tossed around. But Sebastian has a plan, and it won't be much longer in that carriage. The officer continues to yell at them, but Sebastian speaks up. calling them friends and asking them to be on guard. When night falls upon the Earl of Phantom Hive, savage beasts go on the prowl. As if on cue, a large cobra snake appears, wrapping itself around the officer's neck. The two that are driving become aware that there is an issue, but before they can figure out what's going on, a tree falls in their path, causing them and the horses to scramble to try to get out of the way. In the chaos, one of the wheels is knocked off, and they crash right next to the now fallen tree. Back at the Phantom Hive Manor, Real Ciel is sitting in an office or study. Undertaker questions if all of this was a good idea, letting the servants go free. Real Ciel states that he's never fought with his brother. They've had childish disagreements, but never a real fight. And he is so excited for his first real fight with his brother. This is all a game to him. His body may be 13, going on 14, but his mind is, in many ways, stuck in a childish place like it was before he died. He's playing with his brother, but the game is bigger, the stakes are higher, and he's taking in this chaos as if it's not ruining his brother's life. Real Ciel then asks Tanaka if he should have left with the other servants, but Tanaka serves the Phantom Hive family, as he has for 3 generations. He cares for both boys, but his true loyalty lies with whoever holds the title of Earl. I really don't want Tanaka to be an antagonist, but it would be cool to see him in action. Damn. Not Real Ciel collecting both grandpa figures. In his own carriage, Aberline thinks about what has transpired. The twin reveal, the twist that the boy he'd known was actually the second son. Aberline knows that with Real Ciel gone, our Ciel would have inherited everything anyway. He didn't need to pretend to be his brother. So, what was his reason? Was it an issue of time? Having his inheritance recognized legally could take decades without the body or the will of the previous head. Or was he trying to avoid paying the massive estate taxes accrued by his father and brother's successive deaths? Yeah, Aberline, good theory. But I don't think a 10-year-old is making a decision based on taxes, respectfully. I'm not even sure our Ciel would have even known that he was technically doing tax evasion. Aberline follows my thought process here and dismisses this theory, though, because it does not make sense when you throw in the factor of being the queen's watchdog, assuming the second son wouldn't have picked up that role as young if he had to wait for his inheritance to be acknowledged. His thoughts are interrupted, though, when his own carriage comes across what happened to the prisoner's carriage. It lays out, wrecked. Ciel and Sebastian nowhere in sight. Blavat sits on the fallen tree, complaining that his best clothes are being covered in mud. Yeah, this man is kind of pathetic. Aberline questions him, and Blavat spills it all. Caught him by surprise. He wasn't expecting a sudden accident to send the carriage rolling onto its side, and he doesn't know where the others are. Perhaps Sebastian and Ciel are laying at the bottom of a ditch after being thrown from the carriage. What a way to go if that were true. Aberline orders for a search party, and then he takes Blavat in himself. Blavat's disappointed that the whole gang won't be fighting it out in the courtroom. He really wanted to play ace attorney with Ciel. Sebastian carries Ciel through the woods until they meet up with Bard and the gang, who are sneaking around in a wagon. They're here to pick up their wages, aka that stinky old Butler and the group son. Sebastian puts on his exasperated Butler persona, saying they'll have to wait. Only times like these are they quick about their work. What mercenary servants. A reminder of why this gang was really hired. A fun reunion after the stress of thinking these two were going to jail, might I add. It's really looking like season 1 in the anime up in here. Reunited with everyone but Tanaka, they head into London. Now fugitives, Ciel and Sebastian hide under a cover in the wagon as they travel. Their first stop, Phantom headquarters. It's assumed that since our Ciel built that company from the ground up, Real Ciel's influence has not reached it yet. But the shop is crawling with officers from the yard, because that is a pretty obvious place for them to go. Sebastian is a bit surprised. It's been all of one evening since they've escaped, but they've been quick to hunt them down, or at least try to. Ciel assumes it's on Commissioner Randall's orders. That man has hated him for so long. And Ciel wouldn't be surprised if he used this as a chance to get rid of him. Imagine being a middle-aged man beefing with a 13-year-old so bad that when he's alleged of crimes, you're like, yeah, let me put all these resources into catching that kid because I hate him. That's kind of funny. Rest in peace. Sebastian makes a comment on how ruthless and heartless humans are. Wow, we get it. People are cruel. I kind of love how Sebastian will talk about how much he has seen and done on Earth, but every time a human does something that's mean, he's like, wow, humans are horrible. Like it's the first time he's made this observation. I get it's a core theme of Black Butler, and that's why he's always bringing it up, but it is funny that he keeps harping about it to Ciel, when Ciel had a whole character moment at the end of Book of Circus, reiterating the same thing to him. It's just two bitches looking at each other going, yes, exactly, about the same thing for 140-something chapters. The gang stand in an alley trying to decide what to do now and where to go, but they're spotted by an officer. Everyone scatter! They run to the Lark photographic studio where they think they'll be safe, for now. That is until the flash of a bulb and their picture is taken. This moment immortalized in all of its shame and unglory. Pitt's being silly. Sebastian doesn't like it though and reprimands him. Pitt is not a threat at this moment though. He reintroduces himself, gives them a welcome to the shop and a rundown on the services he can offer. Sebastian makes a request and it becomes clear they are speaking in code. The theme of Sebastian's photo request? The legend of King Arthur. So this is interesting because King Arthur is at the center of a lot of folk tales. The story of Camelot, the Knights of the Round Table, Quest for the Holy Grail. He's kind of an icon. There are numerous folk tales, one of which being that King Arthur never really died. Instead, he's hiding out somewhere awaiting the time for his return. A parallel to real Ciel returning after dying. A parallel to our Ciel coming back to life after being assumed dead. A fun little nod to the legends and the story unfolding in Black Butler. The actual code going on here, though, is that there's a particular request that's an escape route. Behind the tapestry lays a door, where the gang are led through the back rooms of the shop and into the sewers. Pitt also lets them know that today is on him. He's not helping for payment, but for what he knows is right. He knows that Ciel and Sebastian are not the murderers, and he's willing to help them out. But he does let them know that if he becomes desperate for money, he will be selling the photo he took of them trying to escape. And you know what? Fine. I love that Finney is in awe of the sewers, by the way. Snake is going to be sick from the smell, though. Pitt tells them that the sewer was built during the Great Stink, a time period in the summer of 1885 where the Thames was so full of sewage that the whole place smelled like shit. Literally. Very glad to be alive in a time when modern plumbing and sewage disposal has already been figured out for the most part. Pitt lets them know that no one comes down there aside from rats or drain cleaners, so it's perfect for sneaking around. He gives them a map, a lantern, and masks for their journey, and on his way out, Sebastian asks him to send a telegram to Mr. Klaus and Diedrich, likely trying to ask for their aid or telling them what's going on. He says he'll give it a go, and they part ways. Once he's back up in the shop, Pitt finds himself being held at gunpoint by Commissioner Randall. He knows that Phantom Hive had come through there, and it seems he knows what's up. Pitt claims that yesterday's friends are today's enemy, and that's scary. A comment on how Randall is all in on apprehending this boy he used to reluctantly rely on to solve cases. Or his own flip-floppy here. Randall threatens him, talking down to him for how he's made ends meet in the past. Pitt folds almost immediately, telling them that Phantom Hive and the gang went down into the sewers. A move to save his own skin, even if it means selling out someone he'd considered a friend. But also, they had a head start, so maybe they'll be fine. I don't really know what he's thinking here, but I think he is probably, definitely one, keeping himself safe, protecting himself, and I understand that. But I also do think he's probably thinking oh yeah, head start, they'll be fine. And if they're not fine, well, I tried. He seems very chill like that. Back in the sewers, Ciel and the gang are trying to make their way to Regent's Canal where they can take a boat. But they hear people in the sewers and eventually start seeing their shadows. They've been found already. Before they can run, though, the ceiling is hit with high force, causing it to crumble and cave in. The officers are blocked before they can get to Ciel and the gang. The Phantom Fam are saved, for now. As the dust settles and they can confirm everyone is fine, a familiar friend emerges to greet them. A friend who never expected to face Ciel like this, but perhaps it was inevitable. Lau and Ran Mao have saved the day. He's found the chap with the price on his head. Their entrance fills us with both relief and dread of what's to come next. There's really no telling with Lau. Anyone remembering how season 1 of the anime played out may be hesitant to trust Lau. Anyone who's been taking in his character without my rose-colored glasses may also be wary of where his loyalties lie. But for the time being, he is a friend and a welcome one. A tie that's not going to be swayed by real Ciel. A connection our Ciel made entirely on his own. Ciel is unsure of what Lau's game is here. Is his crime syndicate playing at being Scotland Yard now? Guys, we all know Lau can't keep it serious for long. He says he'll sit on anyone's lap if there's money involved. Ayo? Then he's got a bit of a Catboy moment before moving on and sharing that he's pretty shocked by everything going on. He then orders Ran Mao to go on the hunt. She gets battle ready and seems to attack our guys here. Sebastian moves to protect Ciel and Ran Mao sets her sights on Bard, who thinks that Ran Mao is very pretty but also impressed by her power. Ran Mao addresses Bard as Mr. Company President and promises to treat him real special. Yeah, so this isn't the betrayal moment that it was set up to be. The old pulling the rug out from under the reader and dissolving the tension with a moment that shifts the tone. Very classic Black Butler, I would say. Everyone looks on in shock, and Bard is very confused about this development. Lau speaks up though, clarifying that this isn't what he meant. We then shift to the front doors of Lau's den. Welcome to Lau's Shangri-La, a reference to a fictional place located in Tibet's Kulen Mountains, described in the 1933 novel Lost Horizon as a mystical, harmonious valley. But for Lau, this den is his personal sanctuary, his peaceful valley amongst the mountains that is London. This is definitely not an opium den and also maybe a brothel. Anyway, Lau shares that he had heard the yard was after Ciel, and he wanted to rush to take advantage of all of this, putting Ciel in his debt. Snake asks about the weird smell that's making him dizzy, and Lau takes offense. Thanks to the fragrance, everyone there can have sweet dreams. We get some close-up looks at Min indulging, and Sebastian has some judgments. One of the workers approaches Lau, asking if she should prepare tobacco for the guests. Lau orders baths for the gang, and a change of clothes. He's taking care of them, despite his more questionable motives and seeming lack of earnest loyalty. Lau can be trusted, guys. Trust me, he told me himself. After the gangs all changed and they miraculously had something big enough to fit the tall-as-hell Sebastian, they're treated to a feast. Lau is really going all out on taking care of his weird friend. But he's not doing all of this for free. He's going all out because Ciel will owe him, and he trusts that Ciel will not only set things right, but eventually be in a position to be useful to Lau once again. But Lau doesn't actually know what's going on. So what are you in for?
B-dubs, what are you in here for?
Leprosy.
We skip over explaining things to Lau, but he seems to take it well. So what will they do now? Sebastian shares they were planning to go to Germany and develop a plan, work with Diedrich to figure something out. I'm really curious as to how Diedrich would take all this. Would he help Ciel if he knew about reviving the dead? Would he try to stay out of it because he is always reluctant to help out? I'm so curious as to how that plan would have worked. Lau brings up the honestly great idea of going somewhere new where no one will know them, a place where they could start over, say India or China. Places he has influence, or places they could use Soma's influence. This sombers the mood, though. We know Prince Soma isn't in a state to help them right now, and the readers know he's blaming his dear friend for what happened because he doesn't know that there even was a twin in the first place. Soma thinks Ciel did it. The child that we're following did it. So he's not going to be willing to help them relocate to India. Lau extends an invitation to China, where they would be working for him. It's putting them further in his debt, but it would also be relatively safe from all of this mess going on in England. Not a terrible idea, honestly. Gets them out of England, puts them somewhere new with an already decided place to make do. Bard is looking on the bright side. Could be a good opportunity to learn how to cook Chinese food, but he's still working on learning to cook English food, so Sebastian doesn't know about all that. Lau is trying to help them come up with a plan to get away scot-free, and not to have to worry about all of this anymore. With their skills, this gang could survive anywhere. They don't have to be locked into England. He doesn't know about the revenge plot. While this conversation is happening, Ran Mao is trying to feed Ciel, urging him to eat. He needs it. All this pestering, all this disregarding what he thinks he should do, all this pushing to chase safety and abandon what he's built pushes him over the edge. He stands up, grabs an entire bird, and takes a huge bite. Just really chomps into that thing to show he's not a frail little thing. He's quite literally rage eating, devouring everything on that table, just really putting on a show. No one really knows how to take it. What do you even say to this? And honestly, he's eating so much so fast, it would make my stomach hurt if I did that. Sebastian tries to ask what's wrong, but Ciel cuts him off with an aggravated yell and a quiet. Yeah, he's kind of lost it. Finally, he's going apeshit, letting out all of his frustration now that he's in a relatively safe space to react. The fear and the horror has washed away, and all that he is left with is a boiling rage. How dare he come back now? I'm Ciel Phantom Hive my ass. The queen gave the title to him. She restored the estate to him. He carried out all of the irritating duties. He's the queen's watchdog. It's all him. He's done all this work, and now here comes his brother strolling in and wanting to take it all away? This entire time, no one knew. No one knew he was an imposter, and suddenly they all turn their backs now that the real one is here? Betrayal. The pain of knowing his entire family couldn't tell the difference, and knowing that no one knew the real him well enough to see who he was, and they all dropped him like he was the scum of the earth once the real Ciel waltzed back onto the scene. Yeah, it's maddening. This is a justified crash out. Imagine being 13 and knowing no one in your life knew who you were well enough to see you for you. Imagine being 13 and having your entire family drop you on a whim. That would actually justify crash out regardless of his age, but I feel like being 13 makes it worse because that's a very strange time in someone's life. It's when they're hitting puberty, it's when they're having like hormonal fluctuations that makes things hit a lot harder. You're a lot more emotional, you're growing and you're like learning how to handle things, and all of this is all going on at the same time. Like, yeah, they're lucky he's not just outright killing people. He wouldn't do that. Well, he wouldn't do that. Not for this. While I have said many times before that I think his family truly did care about him and probably did notice something was up, I think it makes sense to chalk it all up to trauma, because why would he lie? It makes sense to not want to bring up something that they think could upset him. It makes sense to just ignore it and let him do his thing, especially when it wasn't really common to seek counseling to deal with trauma. What were they supposed to do? That doesn't mean it wouldn't suck to be in our Ciel's shoes, though. All the love in the world can't cover up the fact that they did not see him, didn't know him. Nothing changes the fact that he was able to pretend to be his brother for 3, almost 4 years, and no one seemed to tell the difference. Ciel has found his resolve, and is clinging on to the version of himself that he has carefully crafted. There's no doubt. The Earl Ciel Phantom Hive is him. Ciel Phantom Hive as the Earl and the Watchdog is an identity he created, a person he built and grew into. It's his brains behind the title, and he's not going to roll over and let his brother take over. Sebastian is shocked, but Lau is happy to hear this. This is the kid he signed up to do business with. He jokes about not needing to prepare an escape vessel. It may not be a joke, but I'm taking it as one since it seems he knows this kid pretty well and knew CL wouldn't just run away. CL is going to fight. He's going to take on the ghost of his brother and take everything back for himself. We've got our fighting spirit back and the rest of the gang is on board. And now that that's all settled, Sebastian has got to step up and be a butler again. And CL's table manners were practically non-existent the past few pages. Things are getting back to normal amongst the crew. Prince Soma finds himself walking through the streets in his grief. One of the orphans he usually fed sees him and calls out. They handed out food every Wednesday, but yesterday there was nothing. Soma can't give them curry buns anymore. The child is devastated. He was counting on them. They have nothing to eat, and his mom doesn't even produce milk anymore for her baby. They're starving. Soma does feel bad about this and gives the child his necklace to sell for food money. The child takes it, threatening not to give it back, as if Soma would even ask for it. Soma is a shell of his former self as he interacts with this child, and all he can see in the child's thanks is Agni looking back at him the day he saved his life. Before Soma leaves, he hears the child he just helped being harassed by a group of older men. Men who steal from the child, not even hearing out about his starving family. In fact, they're cruel. Soma watches as one of them pockets the jewel he had given the child and reflects on a moment he had with Agni. It's his duty to help the common people. And Agni is so proud of the fine man he's become. The men spot Soma and ask for more handouts. They put on an act of desperation, mimicking the child from before, but Soma doesn't help them. There's no point in extending a helping hand to the likes of them. These guys take this personally and sock Soma right in the face, knocking him down to the ground. He curls protectively around his briefcase, and the men notice. They claim they won't take everything, but they want what's inside the case, assuming it to be valuable. They hold Soma down as they take the case and open it, to reveal an urn with ashes inside. Soma yells for them to give back Agni, and the men realize it's human ashes. They want to check for any gold teeth and decide to break the urn. Really kicking a horse while it's down here. This moment is showing Soma the drudges of humanity that CL has known was there all along, stripping him of any reason to remain optimistic, pushing him deeper into his despair. Agni was very happy with his life and the end of it, but his death has left a dark cloud over Soma's life. He meant everything to him. Agni was the only person Soma had. Agni was basically family. And with Agni's death, he also seemingly lost his only friend, the kid who he thinks killed Agni. Soma has lost everything, and things keep getting worse. The child Soma tried to help watches on, blood spilling towards him. He calls out to Mr. Curry Bun. The men who had been harassing them lay on the wall, beaten to pulps, the jewels now back in the child's hand. Lending a hand on a whim will save no one. The fleeting joy may raise you up, but the pain calls soon after. In that case, you're better off turning your back on salvation. Soma has lost his will to be kind. He's been punished for trying to help others. He no longer sees the point in trying to make the world a better place. He no longer sees the point in trying to make himself better. He's nothing but grief and anger. Blood streaks down his face as he cries, mirroring the moments where Agni would cry tears of blood when he was working himself against Soma in the Curry arc. A parallel as Soma walks down a path of destruction that directly contradicts what Agni saw in him, what Agni wished he would do moving forward. I'm honestly not sure if this is a moment of Soma displaying strength based on desperation, or if he somehow gained abilities similar to Agni's, because the man did wipe out 3 guys on his own, and we've never seen him fight before. Anyway, pour one out for Prince Soma because as of making this video, August 2025, this is the last time we have seen him in the manga, and this chapter came out January of 2019. I miss him dearly. Back with the Reapers, we've got a lot to discuss. Othello and Grell meet in a pub. Grell's not super stoked about the meeting place and also thinks that Othello's lab coat will draw the wrong kind of attention, but her bright red trench coat isn't much better. In Othello's eyes, at least. Othello is in a pretty good mood despite everything that has transpired, and Grell is actually the serious one here, for once in Black Butler's run. Grell wants to know why they ran out of the Phantom Hive Manor, running from the action. This was their chance to capture Undertaker. But Othello thinks it wouldn't have been possible with all those people around. If a fight had actually broken out, Grell, Undertaker, and that devil would have caused a lot of damage, and Grell would have been in big trouble. Also, Grell just wouldn't win in a fight against Undertaker. Othello knows something. When he was called to the human realm, he had a gut feeling Undertaker may be involved. And upon seeing him, Othello knew that he was Reaper number 136649, the one who attempted to escape from the organization around 70 years ago and half-destroyed headquarters in the process, the fugitive of legend. All the Reapers are given a registration number, and while most identify with their given names, this guy only went by his number, like how he only goes by his occupation now. Well, former occupation. Othello shares that he used to call this Reaper Silver Fox because the number was too long. Sure, that's the only reason. Grell realizes that Othello knew this guy and was close to him. Was Grell not around 70 years ago? Othello and Undertaker became Reapers at the same time. Othello went to forensics and Undertaker went to the retrieval squad, and he always got the top marks. He recovered every soul with no mercy or delay. He was kind of perfect. Turning into a mad scientist and bringing back the dead was more Othello type shit, but here they are. Othello thinks they'd get along now that they have this mad scientist shtick in common, so what now? Grell entertains the thought of just leaving things as is, since Undertaker will be hard to handle. But Othello thinks they need to destroy Undertaker and his minions as soon as possible. The blood factories prove that the Bizarre Dolls are far from perfect. The corpses alone can't maintain the biological functions of a human body, and they need to be looked after. If their circulatory systems worked, they wouldn't be as desperate for blood to transfuse into the corpses. After inspecting our CL, Othello discovered that CL Phantom Hive's blood type is the rarest in the English population. He's truly built different. On top of that, blood typing is an unknown concept in the human world, so they had to collect large quantities of blood. So, if they were to cut off the blood supply, the corpses would be no more than broken dolls. But if they wait around for Undertaker to improve and fix the issues with his Bizarre Dolls, they'll practically be the same as living humans. And if that happens, what makes a soul? The very definition of souls as they know would crumble, thus making Reapers maybe a tad irrelevant. Things are more serious than Grell thought. Othello keeps nerding out on the science of it all and how quick bug fixes are crucial. These Reapers are going to need backup, but they are short-staffed, as always. I guess I'm glad there's less people killing themselves, or not enough to fully stock the Reaper offices. Best office to be understaffed, truly. After dinner, Othello sends off a bird, one that real CL sees flying in the sky from his window. But as he watches, he gets dizzy. Undertaker catches him as he falls. They're just about out of time for the day, the veins bulging in his legs. Real CL is frustrated by the limits of his current body. He wants to be by his brother's side this very minute. They've essentially swapped roles in the sense that our CL is the more able brother and Real CL is the one with serious issues that hold him back, preventing him from keeping up with his brother. Is this how he felt back then? Undertaker reassures him. He doesn't know if things are the same because right now Real CL looks terribly happy, despite his body shutting down, ending his day and reining him in. The Bizarre Dolls have a long way to go before they can fully keep up with living humans. And that's the end of the Blue Memory arc. Ariciel's life has come crashing down around him, and everything is seeming to be ruined. But he's still got his indomitable human spirit. This arc is the big reveal moment continued, the culmination of everything that's been building at the very least since the Campania arc, And now that we're here, we can only look forward and see where things will go from here. It's the necessary context for everything thus far and the stage we need to consider for what's to come. The moment questions were answered and more questions asked. It's the second half of the climax that leads us towards what I anticipate may very well be the end of the series. I'm willing to admit that I could be wrong, but the next arc, that's a continuation of this one, is still ongoing. It has been over 50 chapters. And when Yana Toboso took her hiatus last year, she did state she was preparing to write the finale. Whether that means outlining it and getting ready to build the story that way, or the final chapters are closer than we think, only time will tell. Unless you're in the future watching this video and the series has already ended. Anyway, hi! What was the end of Black Butler like? I do believe that Undertaker being the big bad right now is a bit of a red herring. Sure, he's up to some things that need to be stopped, and this contributes to the overall theme of what makes humans human, and how they differ from or are actually monsters. But I think this will lead CL towards his revenge, bringing everything to its ugly head in the final moments. I guess I just have to wait and see how poorly this statement ages. The final few chapters did a lot to set our characters on their paths, showing us how our CL and the gang have to pivot now that he can't work with his previous privilege, and now must rely on connections he has made himself, not inherited from his father. But also, Soma will play a larger role, I think. He's got this it gets worse before it gets better character arc being set up here. Either that or Yana Toboso wants to drive home the point of human beings being terrible by taking this sweet boy and watching him grow into a better person than tearing it all down. I really hope that isn't the case. I don't know if I can handle watching that kind of pain for him. But with the twin being back, that's pushing our CL to see what he has built for himself as himself. Find his identity amongst his facade, and prove to himself that he is stronger than he initially thought. I can also see this being a huge character arc for Undertaker, where he learns how to handle grief. Because all of this happening right now is because he got curious and didn't handle his grief for the Phantom Hive family in a healthy way. Men will do anything but go to therapy, I guess. I don't have too much else to theorize about at this current time. I think I did a lot of that as it became relevant in the chapter sections, but I do want to hammer home that the next arc that follows this one, the Blue Revenge arc, is still ongoing, and the end is not in sight, as of recording this on August 11th, 2025. As soon as the Blue Revenge arc finishes, I will be making a deep dive video for it, but who knows when that'll be. So with that in mind, thank you guys for listening to me recap and share my thoughts on Black Butler, and I want to go ahead and preemptively thank you all for your patience. I hope I see you all in the future when we can finally talk about how Arasiel exacts revenge on his brother, and possibly get to the bottom of all the big plot mysteries we've been seeing be set up over the years. That's my Blue Memory video, and I hope we are all ready to get back into the weeds at some point in the future. Making these deep dive videos have been such a fun journey in reliving my favorite piece of media of all time, and also rereading a lot of things for the first time. Because there have been periods in my life where my relationship with this franchise has been a little rocky, and there have been periods where I took breaks from reading it and keeping up with it. And basically, Blue Memory onward, I have only read once, other than when I read it again to make this video. And I also wasn't really in fandom as much during these chapters. So it's been really cool to revisit this series and to re-spark my love and joy for Black Butler through these deep dive videos, and getting to really sink my teeth in the chapters that I haven't thought about at all. Especially later into the series when they were coming out during some of the worst times of my life. So it's been really cool, really healing to make these videos, and I'm very, very excited to yap some more when Blue Revenge finishes in, I don't know, 50 years. I hope it's not going to be long. Thank you guys so much for going on this journey with me. I'll see you all in the next video. or the next Black Butler deep dive when Yana Toboso decides to finish the Blue Revenge arc. Thanks for being here. Bye!